I see. OBS, apparently during one of my updates, decided to remove my main microphone. There it is. Okay. Just kidding. No. What I was gonna say, or what I was saying earlier, was that we have a lot to cover, but we also have some big stories to cover as well, and it should be, if not horrifically soul-crushing dystopian nightmare, it's just a nice broad swath of the news, but also the big major stories as well. So, welcome to the stream. Good evening, good afternoon. Let's get started with the headlines.
Welcome to
So here's the thing. I really like the Amy Goodman Democracy Now! Headlines because it's today's headlines. It's not the week. It's literally today's headlines. And sometimes they are just wildly out there. And it's certainly worth talking about it. And it sets a good tone for what we should be talking about. So,
Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. President Trump signed a bill to fund the government through the end of January, bringing an end to the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. His signature came hours after the House of Representatives approved the spending package, largely along party lines, and 43 days after the shutdown furloughed hundreds of thousands of government workers, forced hundreds of thousands more to work without pay, caused the cancellation of thousands of flights, and froze SNAP food stamp benefits for 1 out of every 8 people across the United States. Ahead of the House vote, Minority Leader Hakeem...
That's 40 million people, by the way. And I am so glad she highlighted the statistics of the damage that was caused by this government shutdown, because most people think the government doesn't do anything, so who cares if it shuts down? 40 million people were impacted. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees were impacted. And, of course, the flights that were canceled and delayed, impacting that many and more people as well. The ramifications of this shutdown are still going to be felt for weeks and months to come, possibly years, depending on which agencies were affected. So this story isn't over.
Jeffries rallied Democratic lawmakers and promised to fight soaring health care costs, which are set to spiral even higher under the Republican spending bill.
Now, Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
And the judiciary.
They own the mess that has been created in the United States of America. They own it.
This comes after 8 members...
But that's not entirely true. The Republicans may be in charge, but the Democrats doing literally nothing to oppose them means that they are culpable. We can blame ownership all day long, but culpability is what is at stake. And the problem is the culpability is both parties working in unison. Yeah, I can't stand him either. Just one of the most wet blanket elected officials we've ever seen in this country. And the Repubs put a provision into the bill that will destroy the hemp industry in America, which is dumb. Why are we trying to destroy a literal, naturally growing cash crop? It has literally generated billions of dollars in revenue in the states that have legalized it. And it has mitigated, oh, that's right, it's mitigating the for-profit prison industry. Of course, that's why we can't have hemp. It's insane. Hakeem Jeffries is such a weak leader. To be honest, though, I don't know when the House Dems have had a good leader. Not in my lifetime. Yeah, I didn't read the bill. I was too busy looking busy at work because I am also struggling during this harsh economic time. But yeah, me and Anna did in fact watch Hakeem get booed off the stage the same night we met Zoran. That is true, and it just goes to show how reviled he is even within the party faction. But when he gets behind a podium, all of a sudden he's the hero that we've longed for. It's absolutely stupid.
Members of the Senate Democratic Caucus joined Republicans to approve the legislation Monday, even though the bill did not include Democrats' key demand, an extension of the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Meanwhile, there's growing backlash over a provision of the spending bill that would allow 8 Republican senators to personally sue the government for up to $1 million if their phone records were seized as part of special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Maryland Democratic Congress member Jamie Raskin called the measure one of the most blatantly corrupt provisions for political self-dealing and the plunder of public resources ever proposed in Congress.
And that is in the spending bill that Democrats shut down the government for 41 days to demand health care, didn't get health care, and then capitulated to literally 8 Republicans being able to sue the government for $1 million. Like, that's... Again, if there was resistance, if there was corruption, if it was only on one side of the aisle, then the Democrats would have a leg to stand on. But the Democrats literally bent the knee. Their spines broke, their will faltered, and got steamrolled in the process. Despicable. Starting next year, all those CBD edibles, drinks, creams will be banned. So that's what's going into effect right now, is that nationally we're going back into having prohibition of hemp. That's outstanding. Now people act like he's the best thing since Obama. It's stupid and just liberal identity politics at its finest, and I hate that term, but that's literally what it is. I agree. Most of what Democratic actions are, from the party that is just optics. That's it. That's all they're trying to do, is get the optics without any substance behind them, and it shows. And now we have to give Lindsey Graham $500,000. Actually, it should be $1 million. That's what it is. Democrats act like just because it's female or black, it's progressive. Well, considering Republicans think anything that's black or female is woke, I mean, I do kind of like Jamie Raskin, though, just a little. Yeah, but that's the thing. Any single one of these Democrats have good sound bites. That's their only role, is to have good sound bites for the optics. I highly doubt this man has done anything useful in Congress. The old Dems need to go to all the Dems who voted for this should be recalled. I mean, hey, that is a thing that's possible. It is definitely within our constitutional rights to implement. But it would involve, organizing the people to do so.
Quote. On Wednesday, Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson said he was shocked and angry after he learned of the provision and promised to schedule a vote next week to repeal it.
Talk about optics right there.
Arizona Democrat Adelita Grijalva was sworn into office by House Speaker Mike Johnson Wednesday, 50 days after winning her seat in Congress. Soon after, Grijalva provided the final signature on a discharge petition to force a vote on the Justice Department's full release of the Epstein files.
For one individual to be able to silence 800,000 people, it's unconscionable. It's grosero. It's just not okay. Speaker Johnson purposefully obstructed my swearing in by canceling vote after vote. And the Epstein files discharge petition sat one signature short. With my signing, we move one step closer to the truth that they will try to deny, but that survivors deserve their day of justice, and the American people demand it.
That is, again, pretty telling that that is a thing that can be done. If I won a special election and the Speaker of the House refused to swear me in, I would walk into the chambers of the House my damn self and swear myself in, because who the fuck do you think you are, buddy? Like, honestly, or I would just raise hell. I would have been organizing protests, not with my fellow Congress people, but like with en masse people protesting to demand that we open the government and have votes and this, that, and the other, continue to deliberate and debate, but to also swear in the person. Like, I don't, again, understand how we see these things as a country, as people who live in this country, look at this corruption and be like, yeah, not my problem. That's how we got to where it is now, becoming our problem.
Speak with Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva on her first full day in office later in the broadcast. Grijalva's signature came as Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released 3 emails by the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in which he referenced Donald Trump. In one 2019 email, Epstein wrote Trump, quote, knew about the girls. In another email from 2011, his co-conspirator and convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein mentioned that Trump had, quote, spent hours at Epstein's house with Virginia Giuffre. Earlier this year, Trump had said Epstein stole her from his club spa. Soon after the release of the 3 emails mentioning Trump, Republicans released a trove of over 20,000 emails from the Epstein estate. In one of them, Epstein had described Trump as a dirty businessman who was borderline insane. On Wednesday...
Wow. So were they friends, or was he manipulating the shit out of Trump? Because that would make way more sense. That Epstein was manipulating Trump while also manipulating all of these politicians through Trump's holdings and estates. That's wild. So maybe the Trump administration isn't so much worried that him being a pedophile is revealed, but that he was being manipulated on top of being a pedophile. Maybe that's what they're concerned about, how it's a double whammy to his image instead of just the one whammy. Who knows? I guess we'll find out over time here. Yeah, and the newly sworn in Congresswoman, she 1,000% ripped him a new one, as she should have.
White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt was asked about Trump's ties to Epstein as described in the emails.
She's not wearing her... Notice when... I think we should pay attention to when she doesn't wear her cross, because when she's extra lying on national television is when she tends to not wear the cross. Imagine that.
Did the president ever spend hours at Jeffrey Epstein's house with a victim?
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong.
This comes as...
What kind of answer that proves nothing other than that he did nothing wrong? How? Show me where in those emails it proves that he did nothing wrong. That's outstanding. These emails don't prove anything other than his innocence. So if they are evidence... how does it exonerate him? He was present with the victim at Epstein's house. That's damning evidence. That's not exoneration. I think you should leave the legalese to lawyers. But then again, most of Trump's lawyers are former Miss America pageant winners that he trafficked, or I don't even understand. Honestly, talk about yet another scandal. He basically was using the Miss America pageant and the Miss USA and teen pageants to traffic, control, and manipulate women and groom them into positions of power. Like, that's, again, the scandals within scandals within scandals around this guy is obscene.
As President Trump reportedly called Republican Congress members Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace in a failed bid to have them remove their names from a discharge petition calling for a vote demanding that the Justice Department release the Epstein files.
I'm sorry. Why are we focusing on this picture? That just looks chock full of crazy right there. Like that, if she had a hatchet in one hand, it would be just the same picture. It would have the same effect. I'm sorry.
Congressmember Boebert was also reportedly
That's a lovely picture. Why did we have Suicide Nancy or Serial Killer Nancy and just some random Boebert? Like, what? This is... I will kill you in your sleep and feed you rat poison for dinner, sweetheart. Versus, I'm a patriot.
Coming to the White House Situation Room Wednesday for a meeting with Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel to discuss the Epstein files. We'll have more on this story after headlines when we speak with a lawyer who represents several survivors of Epstein's and Ghislaine Maxwell's abuse. Israel's carried out fresh attacks on Gaza in its latest violation of October.
Every single day on her headlines, there is always an Israeli attack. And that is disturbing because that means every single day for the past 2 years, Israel has done some sort of horror to the Palestinian people. Mind you, there is still an active and ongoing ceasefire. So there should be zero attacks from Israel against anybody, at the very least against Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. And yet every single day, there is at least one attack. That makes the news, or that makes the rounds. I am beyond ashamed that she is from Colorado. She had to get a divorce because she got cheating with Sean Fashett, the nut job Christian music artist, which Christian fascism derives from many different angles, but the Christian fascist music movement, yikes. And it's crazy, too, because it's not even overtly Christian fascism or Christian nationalism when you listen to the music, but it is indoctrinating the youth. It is absolutely indoctrinating the youth, and we can see the damage that is being done to our country. And she got caught giving, oh boy, yeah.
October ceasefire agreement. Israeli airstrikes are reported in Beit Lahia, eastern parts of Gaza City, and in Khan Yunis, where some areas are also under Israeli artillery fire. On Wednesday, Israel reopened the Zakim crossing into northern Gaza for the first time in 2 months, following repeated pleas by UN aid agencies to allow food and other essential goods to flow to communities left hungry and destitute by Israel's scorched earth bombing campaign. Meanwhile, Israel's increasingly barring foreign doctors from volunteering in Gaza, like California trauma surgeon Dr. Feroz Sidwa, who says he was blocked from entering Gaza this week. The World Health Organization warns only half of Gaza's 36 hospitals are even partially functional. This is
Again, a hospital is a non-lawful target in any theater of war. Any theater of war, no matter any circumstances surrounding it, a hospital is never a justified target in war. And all 36 hospitals are so completely damaged that they are partial. If they are functioning at all, it is only partially. And on top of that, Israel is denying foreign doctors from coming in to render aid. Again, the genocide, on top of the fact that they're also still attacking, doesn't stop because the bombs aren't dropping. Of course, the bombs are still dropping, so they just keep inventing new and more different angles to keep the suffering and the pain going, because that is the goal.
Mohammed Wael Helis, a 14-year-old Palestinian boy who's gone months without proper care for a severe spinal cord injury he received when an Israeli airstrike struck the vehicle he was riding in.
I have been waiting for surgery for 50 days, and my surgery shouldn't be delayed because I have a severed spinal cord. Also, there are thousands of people waiting for surgery rooms. I also have vertebrae fractures, and I can't breathe.
Israel's parliament has advanced a bill that would introduce the death penalty for individuals charged with terrorism against the state and against those who kill Israelis. Critics of the bill point out the law would only apply to Palestinians charged with terrorism and not Jewish extremists who target Palestinians.
I only caught the tail end of that, but a law was passed regarding terrorism charges where only Palestinians could be charged with terrorism, while I don't like the emphasis on Jewish individuals. I would say Israeli individuals would not, unless the whole point was to differentiate between religion. But to the point, how are you going to pass blatantly discriminatory laws like that and not be seen for the corruption that is? Insane. Wow. Chat. Can we dial it down a notch? Good grief. But to your point, Anna, yeah, maybe that's why she actually wants the Epstein files released, because it hits a little bit too close to home for her. Yeah.
The head of the United Nations Migration Agency has called for a ceasefire and a humanitarian aid corridor in Sudan to help civilians trapped in the city of al-Fashir, which was captured by the paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces, last month. The UN is also warning 2 out of 3 people in Sudan are in dire need of aid and that the situation is, quote, horrific for civilians, unquote. Women fleeing al-Fashir describe widespread killing, sexual violence, rape, and the disappearance of their children. This is Anna Mutavati, UN Women Regional Director for East and Southern Africa.
Women's bodies, ladies and gentlemen, have just become a crime scene in Sudan. There are no safe spaces that are left. Nowhere for women to gather safely, to seek protection, or even access even the most basic psychosocial care.
A new report by the Climate Action Tracker finds the world is on pace to see.
So we go from mild U.S., I wouldn't even say mild, but U.S. political corruption to the horrors of genocide in Israel, to the horrors of civil war in the Sudan, and now climate change. Like, can we not have the news where we cure cancer or reverse diabetes or something? Like, where's the good news? Is there a technology where, I don't know, we have something better happening? Like, Amy, is there good news that you can share with us, please?
The average global temperature rise by a catastrophic 2.6 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Far
2.6 degrees Celsius. No, I wanted the conversion, damn it. Because it didn't go up 36.6 degrees. Celsius is how many Fahrenheit? I don't think that's the right question. See, I don't want to... Okay, 1.8. That's the number I was looking for. So, 2.6 times 1.8. That's too complicated for me to do in my head. That is 4.68 degrees Fahrenheit of increased temperature globally. Now, 4.68 degrees is the difference between freezing point during winter, which is 32 degrees, and 28 degrees, or 27 degrees, technically, if we want to be serious, in winter. Now, 32 degrees is still pretty cold. You're definitely wearing gloves and a jacket, and you're probably having your hood up and maybe some earmuffs on. 27 degrees, it's starting to hurt to breathe. Your skin starts to hurt from the air. 5 degrees, just rounding it up, 5 degrees is a major temperature change. Major temperature change. 65 degrees could be chilly if it's cloudy. 70 degrees is nice even if it is cloudy. Unless it's windy. Unless it's windy, then it's not so nice. So, like, 5 degrees can make a ridiculous amount of difference to the comfort of even in a climate springtime day. If the average global temperature rises by 5 degrees, meaning our oceans are heating up, our polar ice caps are heating up, our forests are heating up, our jungles are heating up, our rivers and our estuaries are heating up, our fields and our plains are heating up, and our deserts and lowlands are heating up. What do you think that's going to do to our environment, to our ecosystem, to the ecology, to our agriculture, to our drinkable water? It's going to be devastating. And if it's 5 degrees, I don't know what time span she said. I think she said over the year, or maybe she hasn't yet. But if it's 5 degrees, period, it's still pretty dramatic.
Above the 1.5 degree limit to global heating proposed under the Paris Climate Agreement. Separately, the Global Carbon Project warned greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuels are on track to rise by about 1% this year.
Now, fun fact, that's actually water vapor. Nuclear towers actually are big boilers. They use the uranium and the heat from those reactions to boil water to generate electricity, which is why nuclear energy is actually considered clean energy. But those are billowing clouds of steam, not pollutants, just to be a little Professor Ronan on it.
The growth of renewable energy failing to prevent record consumption of coal, oil, and gas. On Wednesday, thousands of climate activists in Belém, Brazil, launched a People's Summit flotilla to demand urgent action at the COP30 UN Climate Summit. This is Carolina Pasquale, director of Greenpeace Brazil, which organized the flotilla of about 200 vessels.
We are actually bringing climate negotiators and climate leaders to the heart of the forest to experience firsthand what it is to live here, remembering that the Amazon is a tipping point and that the population here are suffering. We are suffering from droughts, we are suffering from climate change, from fires. This forest is a rainforest that should not burn. It doesn't burn naturally, it only burns because there is a human ignition and because the forest is drier.
She is, again, rainforest. What's in the name? Forest. Haha, no, rain. Rain is in the name of the forest, which means that they are wet, typically. That a rainforest thrives on its wetness, on its humidity, right? And if the Amazon is catching fire, which again, doesn't happen naturally, Professor Ronan, right? Forests in North America that are under temperate climate conditions do catch fire because there are wet and dry cycles. And about every 15 years is a major dry cycle where the forests burn, and then through those ashes, new trees grow as well as new life emerging. So it's actually part of the ecosystem's cleanse and release cycle, right? Because the burning is due to also dying and dried out trees. So if you want a healthy, thriving forest, you want to get rid of the old, dry, brittle trees and grow the new ones, right? That is part of our ecosystem. That is part of our ecology of the environment of Earth. But rainforests are similar in that they get rid of their dead, dying trees through just the... I don't actually know the term of the process that is involved, but instead of flames, it's deburying into recycling straight up in the ground, right? Not quite dissolving, but the bacteria from that is mostly found in like wet climates devours the forest, neutralizes the ground, allowing the growth and rebirth cycle. Also, again, the Amazon rainforest is the largest forest in the world and produces a large amount of the oxygen that we breathe. So the last things we should be doing to the Amazon rainforest are cutting it down, for one, polluting it, for two, and doing anything whatsoever that will cause it to deteriorate faster. Or else we are literally not going to be breathing. I have to ask, though, how much gas did that boat need? Which boat? Like the boats from the flotillas? The rich don't seem to get that they need air to breathe to live. And you're not wrong. You are absolutely not wrong. Yeah.
Democracy Now! Will be broadcasting live from the Belém COP30 Climate Summit all next week. In immigration news, detainees at a for-profit ICE jail in California are accusing a...
Detainees at a for-profit ICE jail, which is a for-profit concentration camp. That was a word, that was a phrase, that was a headline that just came out of her mouth. That is a headline that is coming out of a reporter's mouth in 2025 in the United States of America. A for-profit ICE detention center. For-profit. ICE. ICE is a federal agency. That should never be for-profit. Prisons shouldn't be for-profit to begin with. I'm not going to argue that either. The fact that incarceration, even now including the federal level, is for-profit means they are going to run out of people to put in these for-profit prisons, which means the whole intent of having them to be for-profit to make more money is that they're going to have to seek more people to put into the for-profit prisons and detention centers, which means they need to find more criminals, more victims, more people to kidnap and traffic. You, me, everyone in the United States. This is why capitalism can only ever inevitably end at fascism. Because fundamentally, it is not a moral or ethical system. It is one that consumes and destroys in its pursuit of more.
Prison guard of sexually harassing and assaulting them. In federal complaints, prisoners say a guard referred to as Lieutenant Quinn summoned them from their dorms to an office late at night with no security cameras present and sexually assaulted them. One prisoner who threatened to defend himself says he was warned Quinn would summon prison guards and leave him facing charges of assaulting an officer. Quinn was later promoted and sent to another ICE jail in Louisiana. Both facilities are run by the GEO Group, a Florida-based private prison.
That motherfucker was promoted and sent to a different prison for assaulting inmates, which, I feel like a broken record, is a war crime. And I'm fairly certain it's a crime against humanity as well because of the power disparity involved as well. So it's just, we are worse than Nazis because we are literally profiting off of the concentration camps and being very public about it.
Company. Meanwhile, the brother of an ICE prisoner who died at the Moshannon Valley Processing Center in Pennsylvania is suing the government for more information about the jail's conditions and the circumstances of his brother's death. Chao Fengge, a citizen of China, was found hanging by his neck in a shower stall back in August. His family said his hands and legs were tied behind his back. This is his brother, Yan Feng, speaking to reporters.
His hands and legs were tied behind his back, and he was hanging from a shower, and there wasn't a murder investigation at this ICE facility in Pennsylvania, in America, in 2025? Folks, we are literally lynching prisoners whose only crime was being in America while not white.
Reporters Wednesday.
It filled me with great sadness to think of his final moments alone. I don't know how he could have had the opportunity to take his own life or what drove him to do so. But this.
Right, you can't take your own life if your hands and legs are tied behind you. It's not possible to hang yourself like that. It's also not possible to really tie yourself. That's not like none of that is possible. It's not even feasible. And it's just like saying that the lynching of the black man found hanging from a tree with his arms and legs broken was anything other than murder. America has not evolved from its slavery era. It has not. And if anything, it has just hidden that part of its ongoing truth from the public eye. But now with this administration, it's making its way to the forefront.
Sort of things should not happen to people who are in the government's custody.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org.
Amy, can you, who decides the order in which you give these headlines? Because you started off, I'm not going to say light because corruption isn't light, but you started off with news and controversy, and you just ramped it straight up into soul-crushing nightmare. Can you split that up maybe, or do the soul-crushing nightmare first and then wind your way down? I mean, I don't know. I like it. I like the Democracy Now! And I like the headlines, and It's a great clip, but damn, you're ending on a crescendo, and it's emotionally jarring. We have pine forests in Colorado, and they need to burn from time to time. Pine cones will not germinate without heat. Right. That's another thing based from the previous conversation about the ecosystem. Fire actually helps grow things from time to time. And then you guys kept talking about that. Okay. So, those were the headlines, and we do have quite a few videos about most of those things. Some of those things are not in our stream, which I guess I am kind of relieved, but if people want to dive more into some of these topics that was brought up in this headlines video, certainly bring it to my or Anna's attention, and we can do so.
We begin with breaking news out of the US, where the longest government shutdown in the country's history has come to an end in the last hour. President Donald Trump signed a bill to...
You know what is actually... I'm sorry. I just thought of this. Wouldn't the longest government shutdown have been the Civil War? Like, was that not the ultimate breakdown of government? Like, yes, the Union, the official government, was clearly functioning. It still did its stuff. I think there were elections throughout the Civil War, and, you know, the war was happening. But fundamentally, there was a huge schism during that period. Wouldn't that be the world's or the nation's longest government shutdown? Or am I being too cheeky? Can we get some kind of good news in the midst of all the soul-crushing despair? No, the U.S. government didn't shut down during the Civil War. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like it was a breakdown of communications. A shutdown of the democratic process, if you will, that devolved into Civil War.
Fund the government and end the shutdown. The funding bill was brought to the Oval Office for President Trump's signature shortly after being passed by the U.S. House. Before signing the measure, the U.S. president accused Democrats of adopting extortion tactics.
Today, we're sending a clear message that we will never give in to extortion, because that's what it was. They tried to extort. The Democrats tried to extort our country.
Again, why would you report without any hint of... why would you just play this clip without anything else to be said or done about it? Just playing this clip. I don't understand this.
In just a moment, I'll sign a bill exactly like we asked Democrats to send us all along, many days ago.
And he's right. He won. The Republicans won unequivocally. They're signing the bill that they wanted in the first place, with no concessions given to the Democrats. The Democrats blinked, and now we are suffering for it because of it. The one thing they could have done throughout this government shutdown was force the hand of the Republicans by making them look bad and capitalizing on it. And instead, they capitulated and gave Trump and the Congress that he has everything they wanted.
This cost the country $1.5 trillion, this little
And you're right. Trump did use hunger as a weapon. They are now gutting healthcare as we know it, which is going to devastate millions of Americans. And he also threatened government employees throughout this whole thing. Again, they were using their hostage and hostile negotiation tactics throughout the whole entire thing. And they got what they wanted. The Democrats blinked. They broke. And it's pathetic.
That they took us on. Republicans never wanted a shutdown and voted 15 times for a clean continuation of funding. There's never been a time when one or the other party ever didn't sign government shutdown.
Lawmakers in the U.S. House approved the measure by 222 to 209 votes, with 6 Democrats joining the Republicans to vote yes. Our reporter, Anna Fagey, was monitoring the vote in Congress.
222 minus 6 is 216. 209 plus 6 is 220 or 215. So it still would have passed by majority with one vote. if those Democrats hadn't betrayed their country and their party and the American people by voting for it. But again, why would you play this whole clip and preface it with this?
Before signing the measure, the US president accused Democrats of adopting extortion tactics.
So that's the only thing you have to say. The president accused Democrats of using extortion tactics, and then you give it 1 minute of airtime to talk about the extortion tactics and all the other rhetoric. Like, how is that not propaganda on behalf of Trump? Explain that to me. There's some good news at the bottom of the playlist. Well, I sure hope so.
So not in this bill, most notably, is anything about the healthcare subsidies, which is really what Democrats were fighting for in this government shutdown battle. That issue is not addressed whatsoever in this legislation. What is in this legislation is a funding of the government for the next 80 or so days until January 30th, as well as funding for other programs such as SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which feeds some 42 million Americans. That program will be funded through September of 2026. So if we are to see another government shutdown in January, as many of us are expecting we may, that program at the very least will not be impacted. So this is a bureaucracy, so it will take a little bit of time for things to come back to the way that it used to be. But flights that have been, delayed because of the shutdown, we'll see that kind of that impact kind of subside over the next couple of days. Federal workers who have gone without pay will start to receive some paychecks in the next couple of days. And the same thing with the SNAP program that I mentioned, that funding will start to show up. It will be probably a week, maybe longer, before we really see a sense of normalcy return for millions of Americans who have been impacted by this.
Which is not true. Like, I get what she's trying to say. Now that the funding is there, the funding is going to go out and the people are going to be able to have the funds that they need to do things with. But the problem is the damage is done. How many people lost their entire livelihoods? How many people starved to death? How many people lost their livelihoods entirely? How many people went through divorce? How many people didn't have healthcare coverage that they needed? How many people suffered for these past 41 days? And do you think it's a little bit of, and then it's going to take another couple days, if not weeks, for these funds to come in the first place? So how do you expect 41 days of financial struggle and turmoil for those who are already struggling in the first place? How do you think another few days of that is going to benefit them and get things back to normal? It's probably not going to be until January until there's a sense of normal. And that's assuming there aren't further disruptions, further cases before the Supreme Court, or further firings or chaos thrown into the fire by this administration or this Congress. So that is an extremely naive and also dangerous take on the reopening of the government. The fact that SNAP benefits aren't going to be touched in January is probably one of the few concessions Republicans did make, because they found out the hard way that, oh yeah, by the way, the people that vote for us also happen to be poor. We should probably do something about that. So, and again, the Democrats holding out for the shutdown for healthcare didn't even get that concession. So what was the point? If they were going to give in anyway, then they should have given in the first place and not caused the financial harm. At the end of the day, it is the Republicans' fault for not negotiating in good faith, but it is also the Democrats' fault for not pushing the issue and standing their ground and not gaining anything for it. If they were going to give in anyway, they should have done it to begin with and not made 41 million people suffer. That's my hot take.
There were hours of heated debate in the House in the lead-up to the vote. Both sides blamed each other for the 43-day-long shutdown, which left thousands of federal employees working without pay, furloughed, or even laid off.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong opposition to this woefully inadequate spending bill that fails to decisively address the Republican health care crisis and fails to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for tens of millions of Americans.
I'm sorry. It's bothering me that he's wearing a pink tie, not because I have anything against wearing a pink tie, but because him wearing a pink tie is probably some sort of optics thing. So why on earth is he wearing a bubblegum pink tie? Is it like breast cancer awareness month and I just wasn't paying attention? That bothers me. Also, if you were that messed up and angry and upset about the Republicans' healthcare crisis, why did you give in? Simple question. I think that's enough of this video. The BBC just, I don't know. That's not reporting in my opinion. This one's about the FAA.
At airports all across the country, Trevor Alt is at Los Angeles International Airport tracking the latest for us. Good morning, Trevor.
Good morning, Robin. Yeah, the government's back open, but this is not as simple as simply flipping a switch back on and all the airports and the airlines go back to normal. This is going to be a process that takes several more days, maybe even an entire week, before everything is fully up to speed.
Or weeks. Because, again, you're talking about a $1.4 trillion industry. And the infrastructure involved in that industry, with the compounding effects over the course of the past 43 days. You don't fix that kind of logistical nightmare in a few days. That's probably going to be weeks. And we might still see the repercussions months down the line.
From its pre-shutdown levels. Right now, the airlines are operating at a 6% flight reduction. That's based on FAA decision-making, and the FAA will decide how to safely and gradually ramp those numbers back up based on staffing, based on safety data. The trade group airline...
I really hope that these airline workers just say, you know what, fuck you. You're going to open the government and expect us to just go back to business as usual? You know what would be the greatest moment of labor in American history is if the entire airline industry went on strike right now. That would have been the most decisive and impactful moment to engage in a strike. A national aviation strike. That would send a clear and concise message to this administration, Republicans and Democrats, that we are not to be trifled with and we will not be toyed. Our lives are not games for you to play with. And if you continue to do so, there shall be consequences. But of course, why would we do that?
Airlines for America says the priority right now is making sure all of those air traffic controllers finally get paid. And of course, the airlines now have to make sure all of their planes, all of their crews, they can safely relocate to the right locations to make sure they could go back to their full schedule. But that is a complicated process because even a small batch of cancellations can have a ripple effect across the country. Now, the positive note is that this is coming together a few weeks before the travel rush for the holidays really gets going. And the airlines say they're not expecting any residual impacts from the shutdown for Thanksgiving travelers. George?
That is extremely optimistic. That is extremely optimistic that there won't be, because Thanksgiving is in 2 weeks. That is in 2 weeks. That would be an incredible undertaking across all industries within the airline industry to get their shit together from this nightmare to get things on track in time for Thanksgiving. That would be an impressive logistical feat. Like, I don't know that the military would be capable of doing that with such poise and precision. But hey, maybe I'll eat my shoe. Who knows? But definitely optimistic. And I think this is the face that... Oh, right here. I think this is the face that everybody in Congress is making as they're blowing hot air to the American people. Another short video.
Yesterday I logged on the Truth Social.
As we warm up to some of the heavier hitting, soul-crushing videos on our list.
To read his latest rant about air traffic controllers when I noticed a feature on the left side titled Truth Search AI. So I gave it a click and decided to try it out. And surprisingly, it disagreed with Trump on a lot. Here are some of the questions I asked it and the answers it gave me. So first I asked, do Trump's tariffs cost the American people money? To which it responded, yes. Tariffs are taxes on imports that U.S. importers pay and largely pass on through higher prices. So the costs are borne mainly by American businesses and consumers. Next I asked, did Donald...
Oh, hold on. He didn't even go to the best part. Do you see this bottom part right here? According to Treasury data, summarized by Fox Business, I guess I should be looking at the screen. Tariff revenue reached $214.9 billion in 2025 through September. These are payments made by American businesses at the border and often pass through the consumers via higher prices. So that $200 and almost $15 billion in tariff revenue, record-breaking money that the American tariffs have made, have been basically increased sales tax and consumer taxes on all goods and services in America. Paid by you, me, everyone in this country contributed to this $214 billion. And you know what's nuts? That's what the new budget, well, it's actually a little bit less than the new budget that ICE is getting. So we effectively are already paying taxes, whatever those taxes are, and then additionally paid for the new Gestapo and the ICE concentration camps that are terrorizing and assaulting prisoners who have been kidnapped off the streets for being brown. We paid for that by paying more for the same things we were paying for in the first place. So, that's the Truth Social AI. Truth Social being the social media platform that Trump owns and operates and integrated an AI with. Here's the thing about AI. Most AIs that you see in use today are a derivative of ChatGPT. What is ChatGPT? That's the big one. That's the big name ChatGPT in America. And what happens is with ChatGPT, you can cut from ChatGPT and teach a version of ChatGPT your data set and then call it something else. Which is why every company under the sun is creating their own AI, but it's fundamentally ChatGPT, meaning whatever ChatGPT was taught, whatever it knows, whatever it learns, whatever it regurgitates, is what all of these other AIs are going to regurgitate. Which is why the truth about tariffs are being shared on Truth Social through this AI, because it's not a new AI. Because Trump definitely is not creating an AI computer science whiz lab. He is literally just taking ChatGPT, putting his name on it, and throwing it on social media. And that is why we are dealing with this kind of stupidity. Speaking of stupidity.
Stories that have you talking online, starting with a new rule for workers at Target. I love this for you because if you were working at Target, you would not have a voice by the end of the day.
I would struggle with this one.
I want you to read
so
this.
Get this. If a shopper comes within 10 feet, workers are now required to smile, make eye contact with, and wave to or greet the person. Like, what?
Or chase them down and have a conversation.
Yeah, and if a shopper gets closer within 4 feet, workers have to ask if they need help or how their day is going.
But you know, that's simple.
This is giving, there is no war in Ba Sing Se. This is giving a lot of the, now that I wanted to say it, like the 1950s housewife, there was a series about it where these women were basically all brainwashed. It's giving that. It's giving that in spades. Welcome to Target. How can I help you? No. What the fuck is wrong with Target? And why would you think this is the solution to the problem from being boycotted because of racist policies? Like literally taking away DII hiring practices and then beating your chest about it, engaging in union busting, among many other things. This, forcing your employees to smile and probably frighten every single customer that is still going to Target regardless. Stepford Wives. Thank you, Anna. That is exactly... It is giving Stepford Wives. And that's terrifying.
Simple question could unlock a whole
Wrong person,
lot.
right.
You
Well,
get the
let me
wrong
tell
person.
you.
Well, Timmy, I got a lot on my mind. You got some time? Turns
Oh,
out
man.
you do. So Target CEO says he is trying to turn around a weak trend of sales.
Stop being racist. There you go. Done. Case in point. Fire whoever decided to get rid of DEI that caused the boycott in the first place. Don't be racist. Don't force your employees to do dystopian things. Don't turn your employees into the Stepford Wives. That's how you get people back to Target. Not being a disgusting company.
But people online say they don't really want anyone talking to them
No.
while they shop. So
That is the worst.
like you're trying to talk to somebody.
When you're trying to just shop and get things done, and
Right.
they come over, can I help you? You sure? How about this?
How's your day going?
And I get that this is funny. This is fairly lighthearted. But they're not actually addressing the real problem here. Yes, it's weird. Yes, it's funny. Yes, it's comical. But it is literally jump, slave, jump. Do as you're told because you have no other options. I own you, so I can dictate what you do. I own you, so you will do as I say or you will suffer because I own you. This is literally nothing but control and power. That's it. I, Target, have power over you, the employee, and I will make you dance and sing and jump and scream and cry on my mark, whether you like it or not, because I know you have no other options or choices in this hellhole economy. This is dystopian nightmare fuel. Yes, laugh about it. Yes, make fun of it. Absolutely treat it like the joke that it is. But do not miss the point that this is a dystopian power grab and a show of force that corporations control and dictate this much of our lives, that they can force an entire tens of thousands of employees to be the Stepford wives. Sorry, I read vibe on the chat. This is not the direction we should be heading, especially with AI causing jobs to disappear and our government becoming more and more corrupt. This is not it. Right, the beatings will continue until morale improves. I'm not in pain. My morale is great. I love working at Target. No. Wild. This next video isn't going to be any better.
McDonald's will bring in new sexual harassment training for managers in strengthened measures agreed with the equality watchdog to protect its staff from abuse. It comes after a BBC investigation 2 years ago was told that workers as young as 17 were being groped and harassed almost routinely. McDonald's said that the new measures would build on the significant progress we've already made in this space. Noor Nanji reports.
McDonald's does 100% have a problem with sexual harassment.
It's just a disgusting behaviour and it's meant to be a friendly environment and it's not.
Teenagers speaking up about their experiences working at McDonald's during a months-long BBC investigation into the company in 2020.
This seems to be specifically in the UK, but make no fucking mistake that if it's happening anywhere in the world, it is happening everywhere in the world. And the fact that the UK is actually going around and doing something about it, more power to them. Granted, they're also charging protesters with terrorism. So, you win some, you lose some, I guess. But how heinous that it took an investigation by a syndicated news network 2 years ago and then for it to take 2 years for any action to get done. When it's children that are being harassed, no less. Again, all of Western society and perhaps even all of global society, most of global society, hates women and girls. They do not want women and girls to exist in society in any other capacity other than to be broodmares and domestic house slaves. And until that mentality gets destroyed, this is going to happen and continue to happen. Furthermore, it's not just happening in McDonald's. If it's happening in McDonald's, it's happening in Burger King. It's happening in Pound Town, which is a store in England. It's happening in all of these places where workers are working minimum wage by managers who have power trips and want to utilize that power that they have. The issue is that society turns a blind eye to assault and abuse against women and girls. Especially girls, because, oh, you're just lying because you're jealous of that married woman or man or whatever else. We cannot have a functioning society if our children aren't safe, let alone children who are just trying to work an after-school job for a little bit of spending money with their friends. Shouldn't we be rewarding that effort instead of filling them with fear? So that bothers me. This bothers me that, one, it's only the McDonald's that's getting it, and two, that it took 2 years after an investigation for something to actually happen. And that the people that are speaking out the most are the teenage victims. So, let's take a break from that, because Epstein's next, and if we're gonna get riled up, I mean, which sexual assault of children is worse? When it's happening under our noses and we're turning a blind eye, or when it's the President of the United States protecting the largest pedophile ring in all of human history? Let's take a breather.
Donald Trump was confronted on Fox about H-1B visas and why he's not prioritizing jobs for American workers in manufacturing. Listen to this.
And does that mean the H-1B visa thing will not be a big priority for your administration? Because if you want to raise wages for American workers, you can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of foreign workers.
You also do have to bring in talent. When
we have plenty of talented people here.
No, you don't.
We don't have talented people here?
No, you don't have certain talents, and people have to learn.
So, on the one hand, Trump is saying we have the best and the brightest, and America's this, that, and the other. On the other, he's saying Americans suck and are stupid and we need to bring in talent from other countries. There's two translations to this. The first translation is, there isn't talent in America that is willing to work for less, but there are desperate, talented people from other countries who will work for less because it is significantly more than what they're already getting in their own country. The second translation is, we don't want to raise working wages in America, because we don't want to pay people more wages in America, because if people got paid more wages in America, they would have more financial security, which would give them more financial stability, which would give them more time and opportunity to live and thrive, which creates the opportunity to do what? Think, breathe, rest, and observe what's happening, which is horrible. And if you have the money and the time and the resources to do something about it because you're thinking and talking about it, guess what happens? Revolution. So the translation is, we're cheap bastards that want to exploit foreign workers, and we're cheap bastards that don't want to have our head in a noose at the end of the day. That's what this is.
You can't take people off an unemployment line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put
How did we ever do it before?
But kudos to Fox News for actually challenging him. How is it that it's only conservative networks that are effectively challenging Trump on his rhetoric, but liberal news networks aren't? Make that make sense. Right, maybe if we had free college like many other countries, maybe if we had free vocational schools like many other countries, I don't know, maybe if we invested in our country at all, in any capacity to make life better, we could do these things. But yeah, no, let's just hire more foreign slave labor and completely take advantage of them for as long as we can. And then when we're done with them, deport them or imprison them in one of our concentration camps so we don't have to pay them. Like, it's heinous the further down the rabbit hole you go.
It's an interesting soundbite. I mean, there are a lot of things happening there, including a huge rift actually within the Republican coalition on this issue. But that's that piece where he says, no, you don't. You don't have the talent, in response to her question.
I mean, this is yet another circumstance where the president seems to be having a very difficult time defending his own policies here. And I am someone who's generally in favor of more immigration, who's been very in favor of these H-1B visas, which have been indispensable to the tech industry. It would be great if he had the ability to articulate why these are a good idea right now, why these...
I guess that's the end of the video, because now they're just going to talk about that. But suffice to say, I guess they're bringing up the points that I just brought up, which, again, shocking. Maybe I should apply to being a CNN correspondent so I can be on these pundit table chats and actually, I don't know, give some hard-hitting input, because apparently I'm on the same page with a lot of where the direction's going anyway. Okay, let's stick to the economy for a second before we head back to the Epstein stuff. I need to be able to calm down mentally, and I need to mentally and emotionally prepare before I start crashing out again.
We have new job numbers from ADP. We can go ahead and put B1 up on the screen. It's a tear sheet from the Wall Street Journal, which is relying on the ADP numbers as well. The headline here, ADP estimates private sector was losing jobs in October, although we don't totally know whether...
Well, that's the thing. We've been losing jobs since January 21st. And the only reason why we know that is because the statistician who got fired was telling people that we were in fact losing jobs. And once you adjusted the numbers correctly, we were losing jobs. And then he fired that statistician, and all of a sudden we're making jobs, and the economy is thriving across every sector. So the fact that more and more agencies and independent agencies that determine these things or calculate these things are saying, no, we're actually goosed and cooked, is good in that it's honest reporting, but bad because, well, it means our economy is struggling. So, if you have a job right now, it behooves you to hold on to it. And if you're in a sector that might get laid off, it's crunch time, which is, again, not good for an economy.
This is an accurate reflection because we don't have government numbers right now, Crystal. Reaction to these ADP numbers.
Oh, I couldn't remember what ADP stood for, but it's the payroll from ADP. ADP being a payroll company. And that's what's determining that the private sector was losing jobs, because ADP was issuing less paychecks month over month in October. Like, all of ADP consolidated its business volume, and it's like, oh, we have contracts here, we have contracts there, we had 30 clients, or we have a client with 500 employees here, 10,000 here, 100,000 there. Oh no, this is down to 90,000, so now we're only getting $5 per employee or whatever, and so we lost $50,000 from this company. Oh, our income has become less because of the licenses or whatever else. And that's how they're able to pull this information. Like, how, again, dystopian is it that it's a payroll company that's saying, based on our income and our equity this year, or this month, we have been losing, which is indicative of jobs being lost. How nuts is that? That's...
numbers. I'm not particularly surprised by them. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, we've been seeing things trending in this direction for a while. And I think that Trump has thought that he could... Look, Trump is a master at bending reality, like bending perceptions of reality. And I think he believed that he could do that with the economy as well. He could point to the stock market. We've had the government shutdown, so we're not getting government numbers. So we have to rely on numbers like ADP. And we've been tracking here how people feel about the economy. Some 70% plus say that the economy is poor. That is a total reversal of where things were in Trump's first term, where they had all sorts of issues with Trump. His approval rating was underwater, but they still felt like the economy was really good. And I think that is like the central reason ultimately that he ends up back in the White House. So you have a complete flip of that. People in their own lives are experiencing a lot of economic hardship. And then we've also been tracking this slew of corporate layoffs that have been coming down the pike. And we have been moving in this direction for a while, but I really think it's coming to a head now, where it used to be the general sense was, okay, if corporate America is doing well, then Americans are probably doing pretty well too.
Which, that may have been the general sense amongst the population, because that's how it's always been portrayed in the media. And maybe for better or for worse, that was also colloquially the truth. If corporations were doing well, you were likely getting paid, getting a job, having a job with, job security. But then as the economy starts tanking, that's when you didn't get your Christmas bonus. That's when you didn't get, you had to start paying for your break room. Instead of getting 2 new glasses at work, you only got 1. Maybe your boot allowance got slashed from $250 to $100. It's all these things. And then when the stocks go up again, you still don't get these benefits. But the next time the stock goes down, you lose what little benefits you had. And we're at that stage where the stock market was going up and down, up and down, up and down, and people had really good job employment benefits, and then they lost a little bit more and more over time with each recession of the stock market. But every time there was another boom on the stock market, those benefits that were cut were not restored, meaning we never got back to square one. We got dropped 10% and stayed there. And then when it cut, we got dropped to 80. And then when it went up, it stayed at 80. When it went down, we got dropped back to 70. So then when it went back up, we didn't get anything still. So again, on the downturn, we get dropped to 60. And of course, after so many ebbs and flows, and the only thing that we're getting is cuts, there comes a point where we are now struggling because it's our wages that are getting cut, not our extras that are getting erased, but now it's our actual livelihood that is getting cut. And that is where this struggle is coming from.
Those two things have become completely disconnected. The best thing you can do as a corporate boss is fire a bunch of people. Your stock price is going to go up. And so...
Which, that in of itself doesn't make sense. Why would your stocks go up if you have less employees? Isn't that indicative of a struggling business? If you have to fire employees, that means you can't afford to pay them. If you can't afford to pay them, that means your business is struggling by not bringing in revenue and or profit. So how is firing people a stock increase move? Because rich people don't give a damn about people. They give a damn about short-term benefits and squeezing as much life out of workers as they can. That is why the stock market and the employment are completely different paths. And when one goes up, the other goes down. Which is nuts, because you would think with improved employment, the stocks would still go up, but it's inverted. And how is that a sustainable economic process? How? That it isn't. That is the point. And we are seeing that coming home to roost.
The fortunes of corporations are actually now inversely related to the fortunes of ordinary Americans. That is the reality of where we live now. And so yesterday, Sagar and I covered how consumer sentiment is at historic lows, historic lows. And as we go into the Thanksgiving and the holiday season, et cetera, really bad place to be. Meanwhile, corporate sentiment is near all-time highs. I mean, that tells you everything about the tale of two economies and about the way that now what benefits corporate America is directly advantageous for them and disadvantageous for your average American. So I don't think, whether these ADP numbers are exactly precise, I think they are probably directionally correct that there was either very little job growth or actual job losses. This is also for the time period when the government was shut down, and the government is a huge part of our economy as well.
Well, yeah, and so
again, I like this analysis. Breaking Points, I think, does give very good reporting. Some of it's a little biased. Some of it's a little propagandy. Yeah, I'll admit that. But I do believe they give concise information about things that need to be concise. This video could probably stop right now. Like, why is it 18 minutes? Probably because they're doing a deep dive into the topic. But in terms of getting the point across as to what the job numbers mean, the fact that they have to get it from ADP rather than the government, and the fact that the stock market's success no longer has any illusion of improving the workers' success or livelihood is, I think, the main point. So, in my opinion, this video could end right now, and it would be a perfect video, and it covered the topic, the subject matter, and gave a pretty good analysis of the actual reality behind it with, as I would argue, minimal bias as possible. Because she could have been all these evil corporations are harming the working class people, right? She didn't do any of that. She just said that it is now indicative that corporate success is no longer tied to worker success, and that they are in fact decoupled and inversed at this point, which is objectively true. So, I think we can. There's a lot. Geez, there are 4 videos, 2 of which are from Democracy Now, about these emails. Oh, wait, no. One of them is ties to Israel. Let's start with that.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As the House of Representatives moves closer to forcing the release of the Epstein files by the Department of Justice, we turn now to look at a new series by Dropsite News looking at Epstein's ties to Israeli intelligence and how he secretly brokered numerous deals for Israeli intelligence. On Tuesday, Dropsite...
So, I need to emphasize this. Actually, no, let's just hear it again.
Justice. We turn now to look at a new series by Dropsite News looking at Epstein's ties to Israeli intelligence and how he secretly brokered numerous deals for Israeli intelligence.
Epstein, the convicted child sex trafficker, had direct ties with Israeli intelligence and brokered deals with Israeli intelligence. That literally, again, there are many headlines that should be constantly cycling through the media. This, in conjunction with the emails, should be literally back to back every hour on the hour. And in a functioning society, that's exactly what we would get. But instead, we have 10% of subs from Democracy Now! Watching this as of a day ago, which is nowhere close to the 330 million Americans or the 8 billion people on planet Earth that should be paying attention to this right now.
Tuesday, Dropsite revealed an Israeli spy stayed for weeks at a time with Epstein in Manhattan. Dropsite has also looked at Epstein's role brokering a security agreement between Israel and Mongolia, and Epstein's role in setting up a back channel between Israel and Russia on Syria. This all comes as CNN's revealed today. Epstein mentioned Donald Trump by name multiple times in private correspondence over the last 15 years, according to newly released emails from Democrats in the House Oversight Committee. CNN's reporting the emails show Epstein asserts Trump spent significant time with a woman whom oversight Democrats describe as a victim of Epstein's sex trafficking. We're joined now by Dropsite's Murtaza Hussain, who's been reporting on Epstein with his colleague Ryan Grimm. Murtaza, welcome back to Democracy Now! Explain what you feel the media is not covering.
Explain what the media isn't covering. I don't think 11 minutes and 42 seconds is going to be enough time, Amy.
The role of Jeffrey Epstein when it comes to U.S. foreign policy.
So there's been a lot of justifiable focus on Epstein's very grave crimes and facilitation of the crimes of others related to sex trafficking and sex abuse. But one critical aspect of the story has not been covered is Epstein's own relations to foreign governments, the U.S. governments, and particularly foreign intelligence agencies. Now, this information is not entirely private. A lot of it is out there, actually, in House disclosures, as parts of certain lawsuits which have been leveled against Epstein or over Epstein's activities over the past few years. and in a few databases of leaked emails from certain figures around the world which have come out showing extensive contacts with Epstein.
Which, we know that, right? We know that there have been ties to Israel. That's why I think we've even watched the video tying Epstein directly to Mossad and the web of Israeli intelligence, business leadership, and other, I think there was like a foreign minister in there somewhere, about how that was the actual conspiracy web that ensnared all of these billionaires, Congress people, and so on and so forth globally. We know this. But the fact that it is now being concisely presented by this report, and the fact that these emails are being dropped, these things are painting a very clear picture that Israel has been manipulating Western society at the very least, and it turns out Mongolia as well, to get back channels with Russia. So who knows how much influence Israel has? That's the point. Israel is the shadow government of the world and also the overt government of the world by causing every Western country to make it illegal to decry or denounce Israel, but you can go ahead and protest their home country all you want. Like, this is the bombshell. This is no different than the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Like, this is that level of historic, groundbreaking information that shows the complicit corruption of global leadership and industry. And it's barely making a blip in the news. Like, that's disturbing. This is going to be taught in history books, and in the present that we are living in, the history that is being written, we are desperately struggling to even find out information about it.
So I think that a lot of these coverage of him so far, to date at least, it's focused again on salacious details of his life and the crimes he was involved in related to minors and women. But the other aspect, the political aspect, and who he was and the role he played at this very high level, facilitating deals, interacting and liaisoning with intelligence agencies in different parts of the world, has not been covered. We don't know exactly who Epstein was specifically to be in the position to commit the crimes that he was doing.
Right. That's never been clear either. How did Epstein find himself in a position to do this stuff in the first place? Like, Ghislaine, her father, was Mossad. That makes sense. Epstein, I think, may have also had some sort of ties to Mossad in the family, but it was Ghislaine that actually had the direct Mossad ties. So, like, who's Epstein to be a part of all this, or to be the ringleader of it?
And our story is aiming to focus and shedding light upon one particular aspect, which is Epstein's extensive relationship with Israeli intelligence, U.S. intelligence, and the intelligence agencies of other countries as well, too. He was a deal maker and a fixer at a very, very elite level, and he was making deals that were ultimately wound up, in some cases, being signed as formal security agreements between the government.
Yeah. How does he end up brokering peace deals between countries? How? That's a pretty powerful and influential position for someone to be, and should arguably be a celebrated and respected position. So how does a trafficker end up in this venerated position?
Of Israel and other countries. That's what our series is focusing on right now. And it's just coming across naturally looking at the information contained in the publicly available data about his communications over the past, during the period of about 2013 and 2016.
So tell us who Yoni Koren is. You reveal that this senior Israeli intelligence officer lives in one of Epstein's apartments, had close personal ties to former CIA Director Leon Panetta. Can you talk about what specific intelligence gathering operations you believe that Koren was conducting from Epstein's apartment? And also, the relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, which has been documented over and over again.
So a lot of the information we have now coming out about these intelligence ties do come from private correspondence between Barak and Epstein, which were leaked by hackers some years ago and posted online. But
again, how is all this stuff public, damningly publicly available, and heads not rolling, people not in prison, headlines not hitting every news network across the globe? Like, Again, it's not a question that he was involved with Israel. It's not a question that he was a part of the intelligence communities of multiple countries. It's not a question that he was blackmailing global elites. It's not a question. The question is, why are the people that he was blackmailing not in prison? Including, why was he the broker of these deals? Why was he such an integral part of the intelligence community? Why? Those are the things we need to know. And also, why are there no consequences or repercussions for any of the people involved with this guy?
Have never really been analyzed in great detail, but shed profound light on Epstein's ties, not just to Barack, but officials all over the world and foreign governments in Africa and Central Asia and Europe and Russia.
And look at these. ehbarack1@gmail.com. These aren't even government emails. These are straight up, and jevacation@gmail.com. These are just literally Google emails. These are straight up the same emails you and I use to sign up for our free trial of Pandora or Disney so that we can cancel it in a week or 30 days or whatever the case may be. It is literally the same context, but from 2015 when Gmail was just coming into its own, because I think Yahoo was still pretty strong back then. It's crazy to me that this correspondence that happens to be with all these clandestine individuals and with all the blackmail and this, that, and the other is literally on an unsecure Gmail account. Wild.
Whom he was helping connect Barack with. Interestingly, Barack was relying on Epstein's support rather than vice versa, despite the fact that Barack was a very powerful figure in the Israeli security establishment. And so these emails, in addition to House disclosures, which also pointed the same information, showed that this intelligence agent, who was a longtime military intelligence agent in Israel, who was Barack's chief aide for many years, lived at Epstein's house for significant stretches of time, weeks at a time, between this period of 2013-2015. He was staying in Epstein's house. We don't know specifically from the communications what they may have been working on or what his role may have been there, or the reason he was staying at his house. Barack would also stay at his house sometimes to hold meetings and to do business in New York. That was facilitated by that. But we do see that they were corresponding. And at one point, Epstein does transfer money to Cohen. And there is also communication between Barack and Cohen in the inbox, which we believe is coded communication, perhaps referring to dead drops of information.
Okay, did we not just see that? With civil unrest exploding in Ukraine, Syria, Somalia, Libya, and the desperation of those in power, isn't this perfect for you? Like, are you kidding me? And then it's sent from his friggin' iPhone. Some dude in a cafe from his iPhone is like, yeah, bro, we're totally about to become warlords. LOL. Like, are you shitting me? But not simple to transform it into a cash flow, a subject for Saturday. So they're blatantly talking about war profiteering, of destabilizing countries and regions to profit off of as part of intelligence groups and coordinating amongst those intelligence networks over fucking Gmail using your iPhone. Like, that is absurd that these aren't secure servers, secure emails, or anything. Like, it's literally Gmail talking about war profiteering off of regional instability. Now, I find this fascinating, but we are halfway through our stream, and we do have quite a bit to still cover. But this just goes to show, I mean, watch the documentary, watch this video on your own. This literally just goes to show, like, the corruption and involvement and influence of Israel globally is far more than what we can hope to understand, even knowing that Israel is getting away with a live-streamed 4K genocide. In order to get from some point to this, how much influence did Israel have to build up to be able to maintain that to this very day? We are probably going to find out that every Western nation is compromised. And we're probably going to find out that it's not just Western nations, that it's probably African countries, Latin American countries, Central Asian countries, Middle Eastern countries, and Far Eastern countries, and Pacific Island countries as well. We're going to find out that Israel actually is the shadow government. We're going to find that out, and that it's Zionism that is the evil overlords of society, because nothing else would make sense as to the events that have been transpiring for the past 2 years. So, with that, still Democracy Now! We'll start with Democracy Now!'s version. The email itself.
I am the one able to take him down. Those are the words of Jeffrey Epstein talking about Donald Trump in a private email written in 2018. The email is part of a trove of over 20,000 pages of documents released Wednesday by the House Oversight Committee, raising new questions about President Trump's ties to the deceased convicted sex offender. Earlier,
so Epstein said, I am the one that can take him down in the middle of Trump's presidency. So Epstein had enough dirt on Trump, who was apparently his best friend, among other things, had enough dirt on Trump to take him out of the presidency. That is a disturbing piece of information on just the surface, that there is a person with enough dirt on a sitting president to get them removed from office, should they choose to wield it. That is disturbing that that even exists, or that the president was that compromised. Both of those things are equally distressing. What? I don't know what LMAX is, but still using Gmail. I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. So, like, evidence. Literal evidence of not capitulating, of not throwing Epstein under the bus. Like, with actual receipts.
Here on Wednesday morning, Democrats on the committee preemptively released 3 emails from the files. In one email from 2019, Epstein wrote that Trump, quote, knew about the girls. In another email from 2011, Epstein described Trump as the...
Trump said he asked me to resign. Never a member ever. Of course he knew about the girls, as he asked Ghislaine to stop. So what, is this an email that's actually supposed to exonerate Trump? That he was trying to extricate himself from it? Okay, so towards the end of his presidency, he was trying to distance himself from Epstein. But all the years prior, he was completely on board. That's not exonerating. That is damning. That is indicative of trying to cover your tracks. And this is Michael Wolff. Is that not the same Michael Wolff, like the renowned journalist Michael Wolff? Yeah, and that's why Jeffrey unalived himself the next year. Yep. This is why the Repubs didn't swear in that house for 50 days. No, that's I mean, that is part of it for sure. Oh, to stop stealing his girls. You're right.
quote, dog that hasn't barked, noting that Trump had, quote, spent hours at my house with Virginia, a reference to the late Virginia Giuffre, who accused Epstein of grooming and sexually trafficking her beginning when she was 16 years old. The Democrats released a version of the email with Virginia's name redacted, but an unredacted version of the email was later released.
In a recently published memoir, Virginia Giuffre writes she feared she would, quote, die a sex slave at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein. But in the book, Giuffre does not allege wrongdoing by Trump. She worked at Trump's Mar-a-Lago before being recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell. In another email from 2015, Epstein asked a reporter at the New York Times, quote, would you like photos of Donald and girls in bikinis in my kitchen? We're joined now by Spencer Kuven, who represents several survivors of abuse by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. We have a lot to ask you about in very small amount of time. Start off by responding to these emails that have been released. And now the latest news that the House is going to vote on releasing the whole trove of Epstein-Maxwell documents by next week, not in December, as was previously thought. Did Do you think Johnson get one of the Republican Congress members who are calling for the release to flip?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. And I'm not sure exactly what they're going to actually do. But remember, this is just one procedural hurdle, right? The House has to pass this discharge petition. And then once the discharge petition has now gone through, they've got to vote on the floor. Then once that vote occurs, it's got to flip over to the Senate. And then the president will then have to sign off on releasing this information.
Huh!
So,
wow! So wait a second. I was actually misunderstanding that myself. I thought this petition was so that the members of Congress could do it themselves. That was the whole point of the petition. That it was Congress that was trying to force the FBI director, Kash Patel, to release these documents, and they needed the petition to do that. I didn't realize that the whole point was to get it from the House to the Senate to the desk of the president. We're going to see... We might see this get through the House and the Senate and onto the president's desk, and we're going to see him veto it. Now, the question is, will it then get overturned? Will this cover-up continue in the most blatant and most corrupt way possible, where the president buries it and the complicit Congress is unable to overturn the veto with a mandatory 2/3 vote? That's crazy. I thought they were just straight up trying to release this stuff, not trying to get the approval of the president. That's crazy. If an average citizen was even just accused of this stuff, it would be prison ASAP. Oh, no, it would be prison and your entire life ripped to shreds. Like, you would be a social pariah. What's even worse is none of this stuff happened when Trump was president, so immunity doesn't apply, and that's why Trump is so scared that it would come up. And why he would go out of his way to veto it, because he knows or assumes that this Congress couldn't overturn the veto. Someone is just going to leak all of it at some point, which they did say lots of things were getting released anyway, so that's why I was under the impression that once the petition was signed, it's just Hail Mary, let's see what happens. But the fact that it's going to a vote, wow.
There are times or periods in this process where it can get hung up, and we never end up seeing this information. Also, remember that the most important thing that we want to see and that the general public should be shown isn't necessarily the documents. It's the videotapes and photographs that were taken into custody by the FBI at the various different homes of Jeffrey Epstein. We're talking about his homes down in the Virgin Islands, here in Palm Beach, where I'm at, as well as his home in Manhattan. That's the information that's going to speak 1,000 words. That's what the general public needs to see.
Where are those videotapes? And does the Epstein estate have what many feel the government should have taken?
Yeah, so wait a second. The Epstein estate has evidence of his own crimes that they haven't released due to reasons? Like, the corruption, the just blatant cover-up, the overtness of it all, and the ties to Israel and the ties to intelligence. Like, come on. If this is not evidence that we just need a full-on removal of everyone with even a vestige of power that's currently in office globally, and just having renewed elections right off the rip so that we can clean house and address these concerns, I don't know what is, because you have Zionism getting away with genocide for 2 years in 4K and bragging about it. You have the most heinous cover-up of Epstein, one of the most heinous criminals in human history, being covered up by Israel, by the American government and his own estate, and that's somehow palatable to the American people. Or at least not causing them to get into the streets. Like, we need a absolute just fire sale of officials in office and just a complete redo. Like an absolute bright red reset button. This is insane.
Well, I believe the videotapes are in the custody of the FBI because Remember, he was arrested at Teterboro Airport, and he never had an opportunity to get back to his mansion post-arrest. And the FBI then executed a search warrant on his home in Manhattan. That is where we believe that a wealth of video evidence was maintained. In addition to that, they then executed a warrant in the Virgin Islands. We know that after his arrest here in Palm Beach, or actually I should say just before his arrest, he had a team of people that took hard drives away from the home here in Palm Beach and secreted them away. We always understood as attorneys back then in 2007, 2008, when I was representing these young victims, that they had likely taken that evidence off to the Virgin Islands to secure it. So they've got 500 gigabytes of information that needs to be released.
Well, Spencer, you had already...
So, assuming it hasn't been destroyed. So I'm not even... Okay. If this stalls in Congress, it's almost for sure the hackers will do it. I truly hope so. We need significantly increased activity from these white hat hackers. We need to get rid of college debt, mortgage debt, and release the fucking files.
Already seen the emails that were released yesterday, including the one that disclosed that Trump spent hours with Virginia. They were under a protective order by a federal judge, which is why you couldn't disclose them. Now, if you could talk about when you first saw them, what most surprised you, and whether other lawyers or yourself have seen any of the photographic or video evidence that you say is so crucial.
Well, I can't talk about things that might be protected by, still protected by protective order. What I can tell you generally is that the emails were part of a litigation that occurred down in the Southern District of Florida. And when that disclosure occurred, remember that our advocacy as attorneys was on behalf of victims to try to upend or turn over the sweetheart deal that the U.S. government had executed with Jeffrey Epstein because they failed to keep the victims informed of that deal. I only learned of it on behalf of my clients because an informant told me that I needed to rush to court because this secret deal was about to be entered. So
and
a lot of that information.
And the fact that the courts were making these secret sweetheart deals to begin with. Like, the United States of America's government, our courts, our federal courts, were bending over backwards to suppress evidence relating to Epstein, the victims, and the perpetrators of the crimes that the evidence portray. Like, it's a straight up cover up. Blatant, just textbook definition of a cover up. And this has been ongoing for almost a decade at this point. Actually, to some degree, multiple decades because of the original trial in 2008.
Information was turned over in that litigation. We weren't really focused on Trump at the time, so it wasn't the focus of our investigation or our litigation back then. We were just tangentially aware that they existed. Now that the focus is on this material, I can say that there is a lot more to come, and I can say that the FBI does have more information that needs to be released.
Well,
and it's crazy because the FBI has already said, nope, there's nothing in here on multiple occasions. It makes you wonder, is this evidence? So, okay, they released the... okay. These are the questions that people have been asking. If all of this evidence was on the desk of the advocates and the FBI, and they all said under Trump's administration that there was nothing to be seen here, but now we're getting stuff that's released, that means either A, copies were made, or the originals were in the custody of somebody else to begin with, and it was only the copies that were in place, and that the evidence, regardless, exists in some form or fashion and is able to be made public at any moment, but isn't. Because the American people were under the impression that if there wasn't any evidence, that how could you sit on it or hide it or do something else with it? The other concern is, well, are you going to try and destroy it and hide it and get away from the fact that there was criminal activity that points to the sitting president, right? So those are my questions too. If these documents have survived all of these years and all of these attempted cover-ups and all of these purges and this, that, and the other, then what gives? Like, why? Let's move this along. And why is the only means of moving this along a process that would then involve one of the key perpetrators being able to prevent it from happening in the first place? Again, so let me say that less confusingly. Why does the release of the Epstein files, documents, videos, and photos hinge upon whether or not one of the criminals that are literally pointed at in that evidence, why is it hinging on that individual's willingness to release it? Like, that's like saying to a murder trial person, right? Somebody who's on trial for murder, sir, before we read your conviction, you have the option of overturning the conviction and not having it be read at all. Would you like to hear the conviction or not? Like, you're giving the criminal the opportunity to bury the crime outright. That doesn't make sense to me. Sam, I think a certain org that breaks up leftist organizing is working full time. I've seen conversations that starts fights in groups I organize with. Yeah, no, I don't doubt it. The DNC is probably working overtime to keep communists and socialists out of politics. Luckily, I'm neither of those things, and I'm running as a Republican, so fuck you, DNC. But yeah, just what a time. What a time to be alive.
The FBI has also interviewed, as you've said, over 40 girls, some just 14 years old. So where are those interviews? And is there any likelihood that the content of those interviews would be released?
Well, first and foremost, I would wish that the identities of those individual victims continue to be protected. Some of them, like a lot of my clients, nearly all of my clients, have remained anonymous even to this day, almost 20 years later. No one has the identities or names of my clients that I have kept confidential. So I would hope that that remains to be the case. But the contents of those interviews, in other words, what they said and who they were with and who they told police they had been with and been traded to at Epstein's mansion, we believe that that information should be made public, along with the videotapes and photographs that we believe the FBI has in their custody.
And Spencer, your response to the latest revelation that Ghislaine Maxwell, aside from getting very special treatment at the minimum security jail that she was sent to in Texas, that has shocked many because sex abusers are not supposed to be in these minimum security facilities, is applying for a commutation of her 20-year sentence?
Well, of course she is. I'm not shocked or surprised at any action that Ghislaine Maxwell takes. She's a convicted liar and sex predator. So I don't believe anything she does, and nothing she does shocks me after 20 years. She will do anything she can to trade on information that she believes she has. We've seen that now in some of the emails that this duo of Epstein and Maxwell were all about leverage. They were trying to use leverage when discussing President Trump. They continued to use leverage when they were discussing Andrew in England and other notorious individuals. And I believe that that deal was struck to transfer her to this prison before she ever spoke to the Department of Justice. Because why would a criminal, and why would an attorney advising a criminal to tell them, speak to the Department of Justice when you have a pending appeal? It's asinine. It makes no sense whatsoever, unless there was a deal that was struck beforehand that said, listen, if you talk and keep Trump's name out of this, we'll transfer you to a nicer prison.
I mean, that is the most correct way to describe what we have been talking about with Ghislaine. There is no justification for the things that she is benefiting from at this time, unless there have already been backdoor deals, and unless she has a copious amount of dirt on the sitting president of the United States of America. Like, again, this is the most compromised administration in our nation's history. And it might have been an Israeli intelligence operation from the very beginning. Not a Russian intelligence operation, which has honestly had some credibility due to Russian ties and money involved in Trump's businesses. It may very well have been an Israeli intelligence plot to begin with. Like, that's insane that he is either a puppet of Russia or a puppet of Israel or both, which would be even more insane. The most compromised president in history, most compromised politician in history, and that is the sitting president. It rhymes with BIA. How do you know it's the BIA? That'd be crazy, though. If there was like a real whatever group you're in that actually has the real BIA in it, that's nuts. I want to come in. All right. Fallout. Let's see what this video has.
Now to the fallout from the congressional release of files related to Jeffrey Epstein, including emails in which the convicted sex offender mentions Donald Trump. Pressure is growing this morning for more of the Epstein files to be released by the Justice Department. Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce is tracking the latest. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, George. And these messages are sparking fresh questions about President Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. The White House denies any wrongdoing by the president, but the administration still refuses to release the full FBI files on Epstein. And now this morning on Capitol Hill, an effort to force their release is finally moving forward. This morning, as the White House downplays newly released emails from convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein repeatedly discussing President Trump, an effort on Capitol Hill to force a vote on the release of the full Epstein files, garnering its final signature. Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva sworn in after a 7-week delay, signing on to the petition to force a vote on the files' release as her first act in Congress.
I will sign the discharge petition right now to release the Epstein files.
The White House is well aware that a vote would put Republicans in an uncomfortable position. Many of the president's supporters have previously called for their release. In an attempt to stop the petition, top White House and Justice Department officials, including the Attorney General and FBI Director, attempting to pressure Congresswoman Lauren Boebert into removing her name from it, meeting with her Wednesday in the Situation Room.
Which is also crazy. How the fuck are you going to be the executive branch and the chief prosecuting attorney of the United States and the director of the FBI, so the judicial, the executive, and then, I guess still part of the executive, and then you're going to pressure a member of the legislative to take their name off of the release of the Epstein list, which is crazy, because if there was no guilt from Trump, you would think you would be bending over backwards to release these names and files and everything to exonerate yourself. By going as out of his way as possible to cover it up or to prevent it from being released, he is only proving his guilt further and further and further. And Lauren Boebert, of all people, really? Why wouldn't you pressure literally anybody else? You're pressuring one of the few outspoken Republican women in office? What?
But it didn't work. Boebert, ultimately one of 4 Republicans who signed on in support. We pressed the White House.
But given your interest in transparency, Caroline, why are White House officials then meeting with Representative Boebert in an effort to try and get her to not sign this petition calling for the release of the files?
Doesn't it show transparency that members of the Trump administration are willing to brief members of Congress whenever they please?
It comes just out.
How is that transparency if you're trying to force a member of Congress to not do something? That's not transparency. And that's not discussion either. That is literally abuse of the executive branch. What the hell?
Hours after House Democrats released those emails obtained from the Epstein estate, showing the convicted sex offender discussing Trump and seeming to suggest he had information he never shared. In a 2011 exchange with his co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein writing the, quote, dog that hasn't barked is Trump, adding one of his victims spent hours with Trump at Epstein's home, but that Trump had never once been mentioned. Maxwell replying, I have been thinking about that. House Republicans in the White House identifying the victim as Virginia Giuffre, who once worked at Trump's spa at Mar-a-Lago. Giuffre said she never saw Trump do anything inappropriate. She died by...
I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that, but thank you for the follow. We're covering the Epstein files right now, and quite frankly, I guess this part of the video is stuff we've already covered. But suffice to say, this administration is working harder to stop the Epstein files of being released, of burying this entire thing and sweeping it under a rug, than they have for literally any domestic policy that would help anybody, any human being whatsoever within the United States. They are spending more time, energy, and effort trying to bury this than helping people out of poverty, improving wages, improving working conditions, improving healthcare access, improving education access. And it just goes to show what this presidency means, what this administration, what this country means to Trump, when it has simply been a tool for him to enrich himself and broaden his own brand. That has been the number one consistent activity that he has done since taking presence in the White House. It's insane to me how obvious, how overt his self-serving nature is in the public eye, even with the biased reporting, and that the one thing he is doing other than enriching himself is trying to bury this. And that's not the story. So, Sepsuglioso. But, okay. I unless it's Italian, Cepsuglioso. I don't know. Suffice to say, I think we've covered that then. We got an hour left, and I did take a little bit too long on some of these. Well, I don't actually think it's too long. These are the big stories, right? The Epstein list, the trial, and the involvement of Epstein within the international intelligence community. I think those are extremely important things to talk about. But we did spend a majority of the day doing it. So, let's do
and Sandra,
AI
they've got a backup plan too, which is that if it doesn't work out, they think we should backstop their losses. So all the gains to them and the losses, we're here to backstop and make sure that Sam Altman and Elon and Mark Zuckerberg and all the rest are just fine. Here is Sam Altman in a recent interview speaking to exactly this.
Some level, when something gets sufficiently huge, whether or not they are on paper, the federal government is kind of the insurer of last resort, as we've seen in various financial crises and insurance companies screwing things up. So I guess, given the magnitude of what I expect AI economic impact to look like, I do think the government ends up as like the insurer of last resort, but I think I mean that in a different way than you mean that, and I don't expect them to actually be like writing the policies in the way that maybe they do for nuclear.
And there's a big difference between the government being the insurer of last resort and the insurer of first resort. Last resort's inevitable, but I'm worried they'll become the insurer of first resort, and that I don't want.
So he says there the government is de facto the insurer of last resort. I mean, basically what he's saying is we're going to be too big to fail.
Mm-hmm.
We're already.
And she's right. That is what was implied there, and that is a problem. AI is already disrupting our labor pool outright because corporations think you can replace real skilled labor, or just even unskilled labor for that matter, just labor generally. Corporations think you can use this untested 60% fail rate technology to replace people to cut costs and save money. And what we have seen anecdotally is the exact opposite. Every company that has tried to make a giant switch to AI has had to either hire those people back that they fired and tried to replace, or had to try and replace those that refused, rightfully, to go back to work. So, no, AI is a disruptor, but in the worst way possible, by making things worse. But because of the ultimate potential of AI replacing all labor across the board, corporations are like, great, we can make all the money in the world and not have to pay a person a single dime to do it. Which is insane when you think about it, because if nobody's working, how are these corporations making money? So, again, capitalism is an exercise of futility and self-destruction. That's all it is. Let's see. What do I think about the political situation in Turkey? Good question. Did that come up in our videos today? Because we can watch that right now. It's not in our list, so I don't have an answer for you, unfortunately. So, Anna, in the hour that we have left, maybe you can find out a video so I can answer their question. But yeah, happy to talk about it. And AI being a major problem. Right, okay. So, that brings us to Venezuela. Yes, I think that is a very good... There's several videos, but I think what we'll do is watch the Democracy Now! One, and then actually do PBS, because I don't think we've had PBS on here before.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The U.S. is continuing to blow up boats in the Caribbean and Pacific, despite growing international condemnation. On Thursday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced the U.S. had struck a boat in the Caribbean, killing 3 people.
Goddamn.
He alleged they were narco-traffickers, but once again offered no proof. UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk recently denounced the U.S. extrajudicial killings. In recent months, the U.S. has blown up 17 boats and 1 submarine. This comes as the New York Times reports the Trump administration is considering launching airstrikes on Venezuela or even assassinating the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro. The Times reports one idea floated involves the U.S. sending Army's Delta Force or the Navy SEAL Team 6 to try to capture or kill Maduro. We're joined right now by Peter Kornbluh, senior analyst at the National Security Archive, co-author of a new piece in The Nation headlined Trump's Gunboat Diplomacy, and another piece in Foreign Policy headlined With Military Buildup Against Venezuela, U.S. Eyes Cuba as Well. Peter Kornbluh, welcome back to Democracy Now! It's great to have you in the studio. Let's talk about the U.S. This New York Times expose, you also wrote about it. The U.S. intention to assassinate another president of another country.
That's right. It's one of the most extraordinary kind of open discussions of assassinating a foreign leader that I think we've ever experienced. It comes 50 years this month after the Church Committee, the famous Senate committee, went ahead and exposed the reality that the CIA had been going around trying to assassinate foreign leaders. And at that point, it was a scandal 50 years ago. And today, we have a situation where openly, the President of the United States and his team are trying to come up with a legal rationale for basically neutralizing, liquidating, assassinating a foreign leader, in this case, Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela.
We know that the CIA has toppled countries' leadership in the past in Latin America, the Middle East, Africa, and Central Asia. We know this. It is not a question. We know this. This has been heavily reported. There was the Senate committee hearing 50 years ago, and it never stopped, right? And it was a scandal, and it was a problem, and this, that, and the other, except it never stopped. The CIA never stopped interfering in foreign countries and foreign elections and trying to do regime change. The fact that this administration is doing so openly and brazenly at that shouldn't surprise anybody, but should result in massive backlash and condemnation, which it is from the international community, but not in America, because that has been so normalized in our media with all of the movies and video games and television series that romanticize American imperialism. So we are dealing with potentially an armed ground invasion conflict within hundreds of miles of our borders because this administration is instigating it. We will be unequivocally the bad guys in history, in the present, and for generations to come. Like, we are not going to recover from this if this administration actually launches attacks, an actual attack against Venezuela, let alone assassinating Maduro, let alone ground invasion. We cannot allow this to happen. We just cannot. Is that what Sepsigaliso wanted to talk about? Actually, you know what would be a better question is, what did you want us to talk about with Turkey? Because if that's the only video that Anna could find, that might not be the issue that you wanted us to talk about. So I said we would do PBS. So let's
the
do
U.S.
the PBS
military
video.
announced this week that the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier has reached Caribbean waters off South America's northern coast, part of the Trump administration's escalating pressure campaign on Venezuela and its broader effort to combat drug trafficking. In recent months...
Why would you... oh my God. Seriously, PBS? Didn't you just get defunded by this administration? Why would you give them the opportunity to talk the party line? Why? Why? It's not a broader effort to combat narco-terrorism. It is blatant corruption and military imperialism. Okay, then we're not going to listen to PBS.
So what is the United States doing in the Caribbean Sea? You've probably seen the strikes against boats mainly from Venezuela, shared by President Trump and the U.S. Secretary of Defense.
Every one of those boats is responsible for the death of 25,000 American people.
They happen so often
it's
now.
Straight up not the case. Like that could be not more untrue.
Over 60 people killed, no names, and serious questions of legality. And then there's that massive military buildup.
The USS Gerald R. Ford arriving off the coast of Venezuela. Would you look at this thing?
America's largest aircraft carrier with 10,000 troops now joining U.S. B-52 bombers, spy planes, a submarine, and the MV Ocean Trader, a ship designed for landing forces, while Venezuela has begun mobilizing, carrying out military exercises. So what is Trump's interest in the region? Could what he's pushing for actually improve the situation for Venezuelans? Is it about stopping drugs?
We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela.
Why? Oh my God, why? Oh my God. Seriously, why are you giving clips to this piece of garbage? It's like you're not even hiding the fact that you are trying to generate consent for this. Jesus Christ.
My gene change?
Are Maduro's days as president numbered?
I would say, yeah. I think so, yeah.
Or could this be about votes in Florida? We'll get to that, but first, let's look at the lay of the land. So, here is United States, and here is the Caribbean Sea with a massive military buildup, and here is Venezuela, according to Washington, a major source of drugs going to the U.S.
Every boat that we knock out,
we decided to check that with John Walsh. He's with the Washington Office of Latin America. Recently, they published a fact check on America's anti-drug offensive. Let's start with fentanyl, the deadly scourge of the opioid epidemic.
It needs to be clearly stated, 0.00% of fentanyl that arrives in the United States comes from Venezuela, the Caribbean, or South America for that matter.
He says if fentanyl is the issue, it isn't coming from here, but here, Mexico.
The fentanyl illicitly manufactured that arrives in the United States is almost entirely coming from Mexico, based on precursor chemicals imported into Mexico, mostly from China, not exclusively.
So it's not fentanyl. What about cocaine? According to the Drug Enforcement Administration's own 2020 report, only 8% of the cocaine that came through the Caribbean corridor originated from Venezuela. Most of it comes from the country next door, Colombia, via the Pacific.
A lot of the cocaine that does exit through the Caribbean, including through Venezuela, is not even bound for the United States. It's bound for Europe and other markets to the east.
Which, I think I'm going to stop this video right here because, again, I don't like this guy. I do not like the way this guy is reporting or presenting this information. It seems like it's too light on this administration for my tastes. Given what's being discussed about an actual military buildup, I didn't know about the submarines or the B-2 bombers. We did know about the landing craft and the carrier, of course. And then, of course, the anecdotal evidence that the drug trafficking that is allegedly happening across the Caribbean corridor isn't even bound for America. That the amount that is even coming to America accounts for less than 10% of all drugs that are coming to America anyway. So it's like there is zero justification for this other than what he was saying, drumming up voters in Florida and making himself look tough, which he's not, but to his base he is. So what we need, what is happening, and what we need to happen because of it is the lawless extrajudicial murder of foreign nationals in international water. That's what's happening. And what we need to happen is war crime charges being sent against the president. Now, we have at some point looked up the process of submitting Well, I have all sorts of everything else on here. I guess maybe it's not in that tab. We have, at some point, looked up how to file a complaint with the United Nations. I think we're actually going to do that on stream. You know what? Screw it. Let's see. United Nations human rights reporting violations. How can the United Nations help? Explore the information table to compare this. Take action by the following steps for making a complaint identified for each option. Okay. Who can submit a complaint? Individuals, groups, civil society, national human rights bodies. Perfect. Who can you make a complaint against? Any member state of the United Nations. Okay. Great. I want to take action. Where's the button? Where do I do this? Use the online submission tool or submit a complaint via email. All right, we'll do the online submission tool. Special procedures. Our independent human rights experts, blah, blah, blah, blah, blah. Please read through the information on this screen before starting your submission. On starting, you will be given a submission reference of which you should make a record. You can stop at any time. Okay. So what are communications? Okay, what is the purpose? What do they do? What are the criteria? The communication should not be manifestly unfounded or politically motivated. The communication should contain a factual description of the alleged violations of human rights. And the language of the communication should not be abusive. The communication should be submitted on the basis of credible and detailed information. The communication should not be exclusively based on reports disseminated by mass media. Okay. It does kind of sound like we won't have much legs to stand on, though. Because the news is reporting on what's happening, but the international community is also reporting on what's happening, but also the international community is providing their reports. So I would imagine that those would have to be the kinds of references that would justify the human rights violations that are occurring from both the extrajudicial murders of Venezuelan boats and ICE's abuses against immigrants throughout the United States. And, of course, deploying the military and terrorizing our citizens. I think we have the... I think we have it. All right. That's what? Oh, that's the password. Okay. So here's our UN complaint reference. Guess I misspelled reference, but that's okay. Spell check. So we're going to do a password. Okay. Bam. Never. Human rights violation. Okay, to what issues, themes, areas is your submission related? Interesting. Well, we definitely have arbitrary detention, freedom of peaceful assembly and association, opinion and expression, international order. Wow, I didn't realize that was an option. I would say minority issues. We could argue mercenaries in the sake of ICE, but that could be a little rough. Terrorism. I mean, I would call everything that's happening terrorism, but you know. Trafficking in persons. And I guess these are just the places where it mostly happens. Oh, check that out. That could be another complaint, but this is against America, not Israel. And aiding and sending. Yeah, I don't know. Well, we're not victims. We don't represent. We are not family members. And the nature of allegation is such that consent cannot be obtained. The victim is dead. What? Wait. The alleged victim. Are we a victim of U.S. terrorism by being citizens, being trapped by this administration's actions? I kind of feel like that's the thing here. And of course, I picked one too many. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I picked a couple too many. Well, I guess terrorism. And I guess that one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Who does the incident situation involve? Civil society. Civil society. United States of America and let's see, Venezuela and Colombia. Describe the activities. Civilians living their lives and being attacked, harassed, or openly murdered. Whoops. Or openly murdered by the U.S. with corroborating reports from many different countries and organizations, including the UN. Are you fucking serious? I guess okay. This is what pisses me off about these kinds of complaints with like the human rights violations and stuff like this, right? List the members. It's literally the population of America and the victims in Colombia and Venezuela, right? That's the members. And again, describe the activities. People living their lives. Who are the victims and the members? People living their lives. Contact information. I guess I'd have to put myself on there, which would dox myself on stream. But, like, that's kind of insane to me. Civilians of the impacted nations. Next. Sure. Please specify. What do I need to specify? Yes, there is no specification. Use my name. Does the alleged victim agree to have their names appear in public record? Absolutely. Oh, yeah, I guess we should do this. Samuel Ronan. Please confirm that the victim is in agreement. Yes and yes. Country where the incident allegedly occurred is occurring or might occur. Well, it's America that the complaint is against. And most of the complaints are within American borders. And there are additional countries. Colombia and Venezuela, specifically in these cases. I don't know all that stuff. Does the alleged victim that was started due to his... No, it's none of that. Well, actually, hold up. Ethnic origin is literally the primary reason. And descent. All victims of U.S. domestic and foreign policy are primarily of Latino ethnic background or protesters and organizers advocating on their behalf, to include elected officials, candidates, journalists, lawyers, clergy members, and other professionals that interceded on the victim's behalf. So I'm a good writer with spell check. Has the incident been reported to the relevant authorities? Then don't know. I guess not, because I'm going to write a police report to the FBI. Hey, our country is committing war crimes against Venezuelans and our own country. Like, is that... Has the government taken action to prevent or investigate the incident? No, because they are literally committing the incident. Description of the incident. A short chronological summary. Okay. Since January 21st... well, maybe I shouldn't do the ST there. 2025. The Trump administration has engaged in escalating violence at home and abroad against Latin communities through acts of domestic terrorism, lack of accountability of federal agencies, and allowing the extrajudicial murder of civilians in international waters by the U.S. military. I mean, information relating to arbitrary detention. Okay, I guess we can't do that one. What? So it wasn't that then. Well, then we'll stick to this one then. Case info. Damn it. No! It makes... it's going to make me redo all this. No! So this is where the legalese comes into play. Son of a biscuit. Okay. I'm going to save this, unfortunately, because... unfortunately, one, so I can put my submitting information in there, right? But this is actually a lot more detailed than I was anticipating for like a stream. So, and this might actually require legal representation, like legal cases and such, which is again why submitting a complaint to the United Nations is probably not just done on a whim. Okay. Well, that's unfortunate. Can we save at some point? I kind of wonder now. This is my... Does this mean I can continue submit? Okay, we're gonna have to... I'm gonna have to leave it at that. Okay, so we tried. We tried to get as far as we can to see why maybe there aren't more complaints filed, but this would be why. I guess we would... We clearly need more robust information to file an effective complaint. Suffice to say that what is happening, there needs to be a way to hold this country accountable, and this administration especially. And maybe it is filing a UN complaint. Maybe as this congressional campaign of mine picks up steam, I can get some pro bono lawyer support to actually file UN complaints, and we can do that publicly. But clearly, I don't have the expertise to fill this out in the way that it's clearly needed in order to be submissible on stream. So, mea culpa. Which does bring us back to the video. So, actually, there do seem to be some consequences. This video right here specifically.
UK is no longer sharing intelligence with the U.S. about suspected drug trafficking in the Caribbean. Sources say the UK does not want to be complicit in U.S. military strikes on the vessels, believing the attacks, which have killed dozens in recent weeks, violate international law. Stefano Pozzebon.
So the UK doesn't want to be complicit with U.S. strikes in the Caribbean because they feel, the UK feels, that it violates international law. And yet in America, we report on it as if it's, there's Trump again being Trump. Like, it's not just me or pundits or whatever saying it. It's other countries that are our allies sharing intelligence with us that are saying what we're doing is a crime.
Is in Caracas. And Stefano, I wonder, do Venezuelan officials believe that the U.S. might very well invade the country? I mean, are they taking this buildup of forces that seriously?
Well, I was actually speaking with a source a couple of days ago, Jim, asking him exactly the same question. He's an analyst, a person that has some understanding of how the inner circle of Nicolas Maduro's government works and thinks. And he says that he thinks that they don't think that this is probable. However, they're definitely taking it seriously. They're not taking any chances, if you will, Jim. And I think that the mobilization of over 200,000 between soldiers and members of the militia to join these military drills to prepare the country for whatever might happen is a sign that Nicolas Maduro thinks that could definitely be a possibility. We at CNN have learned over the last few weeks and even days that the White House has not made a final decision, that the US President Donald Trump is still pondering, is still evaluating whether to move to a next step of that campaign, allegedly.
That's disturbing. That is absolutely fucking disturbing. One, there are 200,000 militia and service members in Venezuela doing war game preparations for the possibility of an American invasion of Venezuela, and Trump is like, yeah, that's still on the table. Again, Trump doesn't have the authority to declare war on a country. That's Congress. But I don't hear anybody in Congress saying, buddy, you need to slow your roll either. I see nothing preventing this from happening. The only thing that's getting reported on is Hegseth and Trump murdering people in the Caribbean, and Congress, whose job is to prevent that shit from happening, is silent. Sure, we can argue that part of that had to do with the government shutdown, but that's even worse. That these actions were happening during the government shutdown because there was no checks or balance to stop them. Like, that is a ridiculous sequence of events that is happening right now. So, trying to catch up to the rest of the playlist in the few minutes that we got left. Let's do this.
We begin in Baltimore, where the city state's attorney is indicting a Baltimore City police officer caught on camera, apparently trying to hit a person with his patrol car.
Alexa Ashwell was at that announcement earlier
today.
Talk
about unhinged policing.
Some of the details. Alexa.
Kai Mary, Baltimore police officer Robert Parks, who is currently suspended without pay from the department, is facing several criminal charges, including second-degree attempted murder.
2 weeks after this cell phone video went viral, the officer behind the wheel, identified by investigators as Baltimore police officer Robert Parks, is off the job and now facing criminal charges.
The charges brought forward in this indictment reflect the seriousness and dangerous nature of the actions we all witnessed in the viral video of Officer Parks driving his vehicle directly at a civilian while on duty.
Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates announcing Officer Parks has been charged with attempted second-degree murder and reviewing what he says cell phone video and area surveillance captured in North Baltimore back on October 28th.
Officer Robert.
You know what? I'm glad that this dude is getting charged, but these are the people with a badge and a gun that are being paid with our tax dollars in our communities. People who think that they can get away with trying to murder somebody by running them over with a vehicle because reasons. Their feelings were hurt. They didn't comply fast enough. They were black, right? And I think the victim was black that was being chased by the patrol vehicle. Why the hell is there not a national outcry of cleaning up our police entirely? I get that what I want to do and what other people want to do with police are two very different things. I want to federalize all police, hold them to an extremely high standard, and if they deviate, they are charged with capital offenses, right? If you commit a crime as a cop, you die. That's what I want to do to make sure that there is never a cop that acts out of step. Or if they think about acting out of step, there will be severe consequences for it, right? Other people are talking about just abolishing police altogether, which technically I'm not even against. As long as we replace police with appropriate programs to address the social issues that need addressed. But what we got now is racists and bigots and domestic terrorists with badges and guns being able to act with impunity unless that video goes viral. And that's the only reason why this guy is facing the charges, attempted murder. And it's only attempted murder that he's being charged with, which he'll probably plead down to aggravated vehicular attempted assault or whatever. Which is, again, law enforcement has way too much leniency and leverage in the criminal justice system, yet the victims are usually charged from being victims against police brutality and violence. So no, this cannot continue. And the fact that something is happening against this cop is not common enough. So I guess my complaint is this. How is this even being allowed to happen, to transpire? What is our training programs across these various precincts to allow these kinds of people into the force in the first place? And why are we as a society not doing anything about it?
Welcome to the Global News Podcast on YouTube, where we go behind the headlines to find out more about a story and why it matters. In today's episode, we're looking at a corruption scandal which is rocking the Ukrainian government and which has implicated allies of President Zelensky. I'm Janat Jalil, and joining me from the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, is our diplomatic correspondent, James Landell. And James, tell us about this scandal, which has now led to the suspension of Ukraine's justice minister.
Yeah, that's right. It is a substantive corruption scandal, and it's one that goes to the heart of this government. At its core is the allegation that senior ministers and officials and others were involved in a scheme that essentially took kickbacks from contracts that had been agreed to build fortifications and other defensive measures to try and protect the country's energy power plants, primarily the nuclear power plants, from Russian attack. So in other words, substantial infrastructure contracts. And the allegation is that in return for the granting of those contracts, various members of the government were taking kickbacks from the contractors.
Isn't that what every member of government and industry does in every single war effort and presence ever? Doesn't change the fact that it is a crime and heinous, but, like, why are we surprised? Like, yes, it is a scandal. Yes, it should be in the news. But it's like, you're reporting this like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. It's like, I would have been more surprised if it wasn't happening, to be honest. And again, we elected the defense contractors. We literally made Dick Cheney vice president of the United States of America and then went to war for 20 years. So, like, government officials getting kickbacks for the war effort, America is number one. But okay, I was wondering what that corruption scandal was, and unfortunately, it's a nothing burger. I was hoping it was something more significant, like, hey, they're colluding with Russia to undermine Ukrainian sovereignty or something like that. That's a scandal. This, although I guess still a scandal, I don't know. Maybe I am too, what's the word? Jaded. I'm too jaded as an American to give a shit about the military-industrial complex benefiting in government from a war effort. That's what we've been doing for the past 25 years. What are you talking about? Okay, so we got 20 minutes left. Oh, goodness. Oh, dang. I just now got to that turkey video. Well, Kepsu, I hope you're still here. If not, my bad.
Now let's talk about Turkey. A political earthquake is shaking Istanbul. Prosecutors have filed 142 charges against the city's mayor. His name is Ekrem İmamoğlu. He's accused of corruption, bribery, and even espionage. Turkish authorities want him jailed for more than 2,000 years. You heard that right. With all these cases, they're looking at 2,000 years in jail for one man. He was arrested in March this year, and it sparked widespread protests. Because İmamoğlu is not just any mayor. He is President Erdogan's biggest political rival, the man who beat Erdogan's party twice in Istanbul, and was widely seen as a future presidential challenger.
So, it kind of makes you wonder, is he being charged with all of this as like a political assassination attempt? Or is he also a really corrupt piece of garbage? Secondly, 2,000 years worth of charges, typically you serve those concurrently, not consecutively. That being said, I have to make the funny quip. Imagine it's the year 4025, and they haul out the skeleton from an Istanbul jail cell and just dump it out in a cemetery or at a crematorium, and it's like, your sentence has been served. Or like, no, because he would be free, right? So they take the skeleton and just dump it out on the sidewalk. You are free. That, shouldn't be joking about this, but...
Critics call this a political crackdown to weaken the opposition. The government says it's about corruption and justice.
Oh, the government, the official government is saying it's about corruption and justice, while the people that are complaining about it are saying, no, this is clearly... Let's hear the words again.
Challenger. Critics call this a political crackdown to weaken the opposition. The government says it's about corruption and justice.
See, we do need to know more about this guy and the president of Turkey to really have a better understanding of who's in the right. But I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that the Turkish president is a conservative, this guy is leaning liberal, and this is an opposition political smear. Still, though, a scary one. Could you imagine you're the opposition leader in your party or in your country, and then you just get slammed with 142 counts of corruption with 2,000 years of prison sentence? Like, I'd be a little worried about that. I'd also be making a giant media stink, but still. The president of Turkey is just like Trump, except that he's pro-Palestine. That's wild. So Trump, but pro-Palestine. Then, yeah, this seems to be a political assassination. And that's pretty much all that needs to be said about it. But that is wild. Let's see. If American aggression wasn't enough.
Another flare-up of violence along the disputed Thailand-Cambodia border. Members of an observer team with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, are shown a Cambodian man who Phnom Penh says was injured by Thai army gunfire.
Why the fuck? Dude, you just got shot. You're in this and then there's all these people taking pictures of you. I'd be pissed. Like, bro, do I look like a novelty to you or like a zoo exhibit? What's wrong with this?
I call on the Thai side to immediately cease the use of force against innocent Cambodian civilians in Prechan village and to refrain from any use of force in addressing border issue between our two countries.
The latest violence threatens to unravel a ceasefire agreement signed last month in the presence of US President Donald.
It's like America. I thought this had nothing to do with America. Clearly, I was wrong. And you know what? Maybe we covered this and I forgot. But here's the thing. This guy, our leader here, our fearless leader, tries to take credit for all of these peace deals, and then they immediately fall apart or are completely violated by the aggressing member anyway. The Israeli-Palestine ceasefire, Israel never stopped attacking Palestinians. Thailand and Cambodia, they didn't stop attacking each other. Like, This man has no diplomatic ability whatsoever. He has no redeeming qualities as a leader at all, business, political, or otherwise. And he's making America look worse and worse and worse with each passing action he takes. Outstanding. Okay. I kind of wanted to say, I want to save the Starbucks strike for last, but there isn't. Actually, you know what? Let's do something nice and about nature.
It is so beautiful.
It's the Aurora Borealis! Yes! Aurora!
I've never seen the Northern Lights this bright and pink.
Yeah, everyone's thinking that it's going to be
I kind of wonder
green,
if I could see him
right? We've got
out of the White
future
House.
of everything tonight. We want to talk about looking up. Round 2 of Planet Earth's biggest show is happening right now. The Northern Lights. Space weather forecasters,
I guess
they
not.
say this could be one of the brightest displays.
All right, I can't because Washington, D.C. is somewhere around here. And even if I wasn't in Washington, D.C. and instead I was in Ohio, the only part of Ohio that can see these northern lights is apparently Cleveland. That sucks.
Of the year, lighting up the skies across the northern hemisphere and in more than a dozen states, places like Seattle, Minneapolis, Albany. I mean, epic view. Chicago could also see it. And behind this beauty is this powerful geomagnetic storm triggered by an active patch on the sun during solar maximum. That's an 11-year cycle when sunspots blast off energy into space. This time, it was aimed almost directly at us and enter Earth's magnetic shield. That is our layer of protection against the sun's charged particles. But it's not perfect. Sometimes these geostorms can break through, and it's not just pretty. They scramble GPS signals, they mess with flights, they can even cause blackouts like Quebec saw back in 1989. Watch this.
By the dawn's early light, Quebec was still fumbling in the dark, caught in the middle of yet another province-wide power failure. It caused a rush hour on the roads, even some minor electrical fires under the roads, and for a while left thousands of people powerless to go to work.
And joining us here in LA on set is space journalist Sarah Krutis. Sarah, great to see
you. Know, maybe we should turn into a science news junkie channel. This is just neat. You know, can't we just have neat news? Can't we just have nice news, interesting news? It's all this soul-crushing corruption and geopolitical infighting and brouhaha. Why can't we just be like, the Northern Lights with this Northern Lights journalist? You know, that would be outstanding. Shax, what's good? Is this about Three-Eye Atlas? No. It is about the Northern Lights due to the major geomagnetic storm that happened from the sun. The fact that it's, you know, it's kind of crazy too. I gotta say this in the big screen here, right? So, talk about unprecedented series of events. We have an 11-year cycle of geomagnetic storm. We had like the 7-planet alignment. We have unprecedented fascism throughout the world, civil unrest, liberties being threatened, climate change, climate crisis. We have the AI dystopian nightmare running amok. We have China inventing the Terminator robots and also creating drone carrier distribution weapon systems. Like, and now we also have like these different cycles, like the 11-year solar cycle. There was the fire, so part of the reason why there's so many fires in California right now is because it's also part of the forest burn cycle. We had locusts this year. And was it raining frogs somewhere? Like, we have had so many unprecedented things happening right now, back to back to back to back to back. It just kind of makes you wonder, maybe it finally is. the end times. Maybe it really is Revelations chapter whatever. Which part of Revelations actually talks about the burning or the attacks or whatever? I don't know. I'd have to read this sometime again and figure that out. But just... and 3i Atlas, the potential spaceship from outside of our solar system. Do you think aliens are watching us confused as shit? No doubt. If there are aliens, which I think it would be statistically impossible for there not to be aliens. And again, statistically impossible for there not to be aliens that aren't advanced enough to interact with us without our knowing. So, statistically, right? Billions of galaxies with billions of stars and billions of planets, right? There is no way we on Earth are the only ones that are just barely struggling to develop spacefaring technology, and that's the furthest this universe has gotten. It just doesn't make sense. But I guarantee they're looking at us and they're like, bro, with our chaos knowledge, not chaos theory, but our chaos science, like, the sun is mad at you, the planets are aligning to trigger whatever against you, your planet is burning, and all of your leaders hate you as a species. Like, y'all need to get your shit together, or we're gonna make sure this comet takes care of it for you. The space vessel that we disguised as a comet. Like, I would not be surprised if the comet was, in fact, a deep space probe from an intelligent race. But who knows? Maybe we get that lucky. Maybe we do. Reality is, right now, we're dealing with fascism 2.0. So, having something good happen right now doesn't seem likely. It's okay, we blow each other up to improve these problems. Exactly, yeah. We're just going to resolve all of our issues with extreme violence and prejudice. With that being said, Northern Lights. Let's listen a little bit more, and then we'll end on the
archives.
Starbucks
fires underground. That was before we had all the space stuff that we now rely on.
And that's what's crazy to me, that you were just talking about space weather forecasters. That's a job which we now have. We didn't do that 100 years ago. We didn't do that back in the 80s, 40, or we did, but not to this extent. And we are living in the space stage. We could not go a day without.
Okay, lady. I want to be a space cowboy just as much as the next person. You know, I want to ride the Enterprise and travel to planets never before seen. I'm right there with you with the Star Trek stuff. But don't pretend we're in the space age. Don't even begin to pretend we're in the space age. Because one, we're polluting space with 34,000 particulates of debris that we cannot contend with, which is devastating our satellites and international stations that we have up there in the first place. So we can barely get to space without screwing it up consistently. Like, we can't even consistently get into space, right? Reliably. The space age would be, we are actually consistently and reliably interacting with space, as in conducting business in space, whether that's research or otherwise. We are not in the space age. We are not reliably traversing in and participating in space. We are not. It is an extremely hyper-specialized, extremely not well-funded element of human science, technology, and investment. We're not in the space age, okay? But continue.
Space for everything from your cell phone to banking transactions. So these things look incredible, but we are on planet Earth, at the mercy of the sun. And the sun has a huge influence on us and other planets in the solar system. So although we get these incredible aurora borealis...
That's the surface of the sun. That's scary shit. Secondly, all of this is like 1/8 of the sun. 1/8 of the sun's surface. Like a hemisphere, right? Like a quarter sphere, an eighth sphere. And Earth would probably fit at the tip of my arrow in any of those spots, because it takes 1 million Earths to fill the sun. So this solar storm could engulf the earth in its entirety, and it wouldn't even be noticeable. Like, that's some scary shit. I'm just saying. That would also, like, Jupiter would be swallowed up in that mess. Like, it didn't even make an inkling of it. Like, you could superimpose Jupiter in this screen, and you'd be like, wow, that's even scarier, because there's a storm in our solar system that makes a planet, the largest planet in our solar system, seem insignificant. That's crazy. Crazy. All right. As promised, because I got a little too nerdy, sorry, we're going to end on the Starbucks strike. Let's go!
Employees are on strike this morning. Workers say they're pushing for higher pay and to eliminate what they call unfair labor practices. The union also says baristas from 40 cities across the country are prepared to make this the, quote, longest strike in company history. Now Starbucks is insisting it treats its baristas well and that the strike only represents a small percentage of the company's workers. ABC's Andrew Dimber has the details for us. Hi, Andrew. So the union...
You know what, though? Here's the thing. It's only 1,000 employees because only so many Starbucks locations are unions. But that's amazing. This is the only strike. Maybe there's a couple teacher strikes out there. Why isn't labor generally, unions, whether it's teachers, worker, like the AFL-CIO, like, why aren't all of these unions working together, communicating with one another to facilitate a general strike? It's not just Starbucks that's suffering. It's not just teachers or rail workers or aviation workers. It's literally all of labor. Why are they not coordinating a mass general strike in the United States? I don't get that. But anyway, let's...
The union says Starbucks refused to offer new staffing and pay proposals. So where do negotiations stand now?
Well, Diane, they're calling this the Red Cup Rebellion. As you mentioned there, over 1,000 unionized Starbucks baristas walking off the job in part because they want a new collective bargaining agreement. But they also accuse the company of failing to negotiate in good faith. They also accuse Starbucks of trying to union bust and say that there are around 700 or so unresolved labor violations. So they're on strike because they want...
There are 700 labor violations within this company. And Starbucks is facing 0 consequences. That should be the story. That it's not the 1,000 baristas. It's not the few locations that are unionized. It's not even the union busting, which is a problem. But it's the 700 plus labor violations. Bruh. Our country... You know, people are like, oh, we're this close to becoming a kleptocracy. I don't know. If you can have 700 labor violations against you, and the government doesn't do anything about it, and you're a company, I think you're the one that's in charge. And that is a problem. I thought this was supposed to be an inspiring story.
A new collective bargaining agreement, but they also have demands for what they want included in this new contract, which includes better hours and staffing, higher pay, as well as a resolution to some of those labor violations. Now, ABC News...
Some of the 700 labor violations.
Has reached out to Starbucks for comment. A spokesperson got back to us and essentially downplayed the strike and faults the union for failing to bargain with the company. And meanwhile, these demonstrators say that they are prepared to make this the longest and largest strike in company history, saying simply, no contract, no coffee. Diane.
No contract, no coffee. No contract, no coffee. No contract, no coffee. You know what? If this somehow triggers the general strike in the United States, I am here for it. Because something needs to happen. Some sort of spark needs to ignite the American people, the workers' movement. Something needs to happen. I don't even care if it's a self-serving Democrat. I don't give a shit if it's Mamdani, AOC, the lady from Jasmine. I don't care if it's Jasmine. I don't care who it is. Please jump on this bandwagon and ignite the labor movement. I will say nice things about you and stop throwing you under the bus. But that's exactly what we need. So, that brings us to 10 o'clock. Boom! One more stream under our belt. Well done, everybody. We got through it. We laughed, we cried, we oohed, and then we awed, and we got a little angry. So, I think that's pretty much what we need in our streams, is the full gamut of human emotion. That's what this president brings to America. But yeah, we are going to wrap up. I appreciate y'all watching, coming, joining, spreading the word. Please share with your friends, family, neighbors, coworkers, and tell them to come to Twitch Tuesdays through Thursdays, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern. Tuesdays, we talk about U.S. news and policies. Wednesday is worldwide news and policies. And Thursday is a recap of whatever may have been happening or that we may have missed throughout the stream. So with that being said, I appreciate y'all. I look forward to seeing y'all on Tuesday. Have a great night and have a great weekend. Samuel Ronan, your president, out.